What we do here is go back.
That looks like it might be working. Good evening everybody, Mike here, Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. It is Saturday the 1st of July 2023. How you doing? This is going to be a rather low-key affair. I've actually done my back in a little bit in a bizarre way, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So not much movement, at least I'm going to try not to. And if you occasionally see me or hear me wincing rather, I got a bad back. And it's only done in the last, well, since about 6 o'clock this evening. So last minute thing. I was thinking of cancelling, but I thought, what the hell, let's just get it done. Get on with it. Hopefully a bit of moving around will stop it seizing up totally. We'll see how it goes. Thank you for the super chats that have come in already. And thank you, Stuart Cleary, for the one which has just come in. Does that come up on the screen? Oh, yeah. The pop-up chat thing, I've been trying to sort this out during the week. And I got to the point where I'd almost got it perfected. And it stopped working again. So I'm still getting that weird thing where it just pops up on my screen, so now I can't scroll unless I click somewhere else and then I can scroll. So if I don't get to the chat immediately, I do apologise. Anyway, there we go. Thank you very much for that, Stuart. There's £10 coming from Mick Woods as well, and there's another one from Ugly Bob, bless your heart, saying £20 towards whatever pain relief. I've actually got my pain relief on the desk, believe it or not, which oh, just looking at Kath, see what she's saying. No, she's not saying anything. This is my pain relief. This is what they call a Terra wand, or iTerra wand.
iTerra Care wand.
iTerra Care wand. It's yeah, it's kind of hippie stuff mixed in with a bit of technology, and it does seem to do a good job. I'm actually more mobile now. I wasn't mobile at all earlier, so yeah, it's doing a good job so far. Adam N says, twerking for TikTok videos throwing your back out. No, fortunately not. So yeah, on tonight's stream, I'm going to go through, talk about some things which has happened during the week. I'm going to try not to be in too much pain. Also going to take your chat as well, so if you've got questions, put a queue in front of them and I'll try and get to them. If for some reason I miss them, just pop them in again a little bit later on. Don't spam the chat, because nobody likes spam chat, but yeah, if I do miss one, I do apologise. I will try and get to your questions as soon as possible. And obviously we'll discuss some of this week's topics, such as the extremely underwhelming RTX 4060 and the reviews thereof. No doubt some of you have got some opinions on that card, and also some of the review techniques used for reviewing that card. Some of you have already posted in our Discord various things which you were pointing out. And yeah, I think reviews are going to start getting very, very murky, especially in the way that these things are actually reviewed. Especially now we're going to be relying heavier and heavier, or more and more heavily, on certain gimmicks, such as XESS, DLSS, FSR, all those kinds of scaling technologies, which arguably back in the day they would be considered cheating, but they are part and parcel of modern life now and gameplay, so they are relevant and they do have a place. Do you want to see reviews with those features completely ignored? Do you want to see reviews with those features used? Do you want to see it with a bit of both, so with and without? Does it make a difference? Would you just rather see rasterization performance in its native raw format? I don't know. I'm totally on the fence myself. Personally, I think if I'm buying a graphics card or looking at reviews, I'm generally going to be looking at the raw horsepower to begin with. But if there is some kind of technology which increases the performance significantly with very little downsides or visual compromises, then I think it's worth taking a look at. But we'll talk about that and let us know what your thoughts are on that a little bit later on. What should we take a look at next? Oh, I should mention as well, there was a super chat then as well, I'm sure. Was there a super chat come in? Did I just ignore that completely?
There was Stuart Cleary.
Stuart Cleary, Ugly Bob. No, we've done that. So Mick Woods, £10. Thank you, sir. Ugly Bob, £2. Disco, Disco, Disco. Stuart Cleary, heading into town now on the lash. Have a good one, mubbers. Nice one, Stuart. Have a nice time. And Ugly Bob, £20 towards whatever pain relief you need for your back. Bless you. Right, we are up to date on that. So yeah, it's been a bit of a weird week. It started off with potentially one of the things which I'm always very conscious of, and that is getting scammed, especially online and especially with AliExpress. Now, for those of you that aren't regulars, you'll know very little about this, but for regular viewers, I'll go over it anyway. So we did a review of the RX 5700 8GB card from AliExpress, which I think was a Milesy or Milsy. And there's also other brands on AliExpress which do a similar thing. Elsa is one of those brands as well which do these cards. So I ordered another one because it was I saw it as excellent value for money. Although saying that, there are other options now which are starting to look slightly more favourable in hindsight. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, ordered another card, paid for it, PayPal. As I suggest most of the time, if you're going to buy anything from AliExpress, try and use PayPal to have a little bit of security. So if it does go wrong, if AliExpress decide that they're going to side with the seller, you've still got your PayPal to fall back on as a last resort. So, ordered the graphics card and it said it would be with us within 11 days. And just watching it, seeing it come through customs, etc. on their little tracker on the site. So, oh, should be arriving any minute. Now, the day that it arrived was slightly unfortunate that I was potentially upstairs having a poo and Kath got the door.
It was coffee enema.
All right, yeah. I was doing other things. So Kath got the door and I kind of just didn't really think too much about it. Didn't see any large packages on the table when I come back downstairs and just carried on about my day. Then looked at my emails and it says your parcel has been delivered. And I was like, well, it hasn't. I do not appear to have a graphics card in my hands. No, definitely not there. And looked at the desk and I could see this very, very, very tiny little package, which actually I will try and grab if I can. Well, I'm not entirely sure where it is. Bear me a moment, I will grab the package to give you an idea of what it actually looks like. Ow. And actually, I'll get a comparison as well.
That's his package.
Oh God, it's all going wrong. Oh, it's like itching my arm. He slides back into shot. So this was what I was expecting. Something along these lines, Elsa graphics card, just a plain box. So you expect a package with bubble wrap and a little bit of protection, etc. You're expecting a certain size of box. Unfortunately, what was actually on the desk was this.
Which I did have a good grab of your package.
Yes. This extreme... Kath manipulated my package lovingly.
I didn't think there was anything in there.
And this is basically empty. Now, at first I didn't get too upset because I have ordered some micro switches to replace switches in my mice. So I am expecting a smaller package to arrive from AliExpress. So I thought I'll take a closer look at it. And actually looking at this piece of bubble wrap, which literally is just a piece of bubble wrap, an envelope, which has been folded over. And yep, there's definitely not a graphics card in there. So I looked at this and on the actual shipping label, I'm going to read this out because obviously I don't want to show you my address, etc. It's got the date on there, which is correct. And it's got a weight on there as well. So this package allegedly is 1.2 kilos. Definitely not. Maybe
drop the graphics card in the box for comparison.
No. So to give you, that is about, I don't know, 10 grams, 20 grams
Might be a
at
GPU
best.
for ants if you looked closely inside.
Yeah. So essentially that is what turned up. So I took a picture of it, posted it on AliExpress onto their support thing. I said, look, this is clearly a scam. The label says 1.2 kilos. This is clearly a tiny package which has just been folded over. It is literally empty. Literally empty. There's nothing in there whatsoever. So they went back to the actual vendor on AliExpress and said, we recommend you refund this product because obviously there's no physical way that could have been shipped. And they refused, believe it or not. In their heart of hearts, their stony cold hearts, they decided, no, it would be much better to keep my £100, or £94 I think it was. And yeah, they said no. At which point AliExpress stood in and said, well, we actually disagree with you, so we are going to forcibly take the funds from you and send it back to Mr. Churchill, because he's a lovely man and he does his reviews, and yeah, he doesn't want to get scammed by you bastards. So that, unfortunately, is the darker side of AliExpress and buying overseas, etc. Even, I suppose, buying in the UK. It doesn't really matter.
Did you buy it from the same seller as the last card?
I thought it was the same seller as the last card, but it doesn't appear to be. So that is basically on me. The seller was called Happy Furniture Co. or something, and they sell basically furniture and a graphics card. That particular one. So the warning signs were there, but we were protected. So ultimately it worked out okay. They said the refund would be in our account within 3 to 4 days. And in fact, by the time I'd read the email, grabbed my phone to look at PayPal, it was actually in the PayPal account. So I'd come back kind of lightning speed. So for those that are concerned that maybe we've lost out, no, we have had the money back. It's just been traumatic, and obviously the time and effort and going through the paces and processes of trying to get the refund. So anyway, that is all done now.
Sky asked what was in the package.
There, literally nothing. The package was completely empty. And David Aiken, sorry, I should have acknowledged that. So he says, evening Mike, Kath and Mubbers. How you doing, David?
Also, there was a question from...
Oh, there was a question. Anyway, so there you go. That is the update for the RX 5700. Bit of a downer, to be honest with you. But these things happen, so life goes on. So graphics card wise, this week for me personally has been a pretty traumatic affair, because the 4060 has come out and is basically kind of pointless, I feel personally. I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts on it are. Is anyone in the chat brave enough to tell us if you're actually seriously considering buying an RX 460 at its current retail price? I think there's not going to be many people that are going to go for that, but you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Right. WTAC, like a quick question.
WTAC. I've got to see if I can find this name. Was that before the super chat?
Yeah. Should I just read it?
Yeah, it might be easier.
Is the Gigabyte B550M DS3H, the budget board, a bit good?
A bit good. It is a bit good.
We better read it. Relay that.
Yeah, I better do. I can see it now. Like, little question. Is the Gigabyte B550M DS3H, the budget board, a bit good? Yes, it is a bit good. It's not great and it's not awful. It kind of ticks a lot of boxes. It depends. I think with most things, it's one of those situations where there isn't really a bad product. There is a bad price. So if it's at the right price, then it's an okay product. If you're paying over and above, then you're probably better off buying something else. It depends on what your local pricing is like, what country you're in, those kinds of things. Are you going to have to pay shipping costs? Is it new, used, etc.? Realistically, if I was having to go out and buy a Micro ATX B550 motherboard at the moment, that specific one, I would not really be prepared to pay more than, I've got to say, £70 or £80. And that, I would still have to possibly consider other options as well. I know motherboard pricing is absolutely ludicrous at the moment, so it's very difficult to kind of really kind of hone in on those prices, but yeah, it's an acceptable board. It'll do what you need. It supports most processors quite easily, so yeah, it's an okay. It's not brilliant. I personally, in terms of Micro ATX is always a weird one, because in theory they should be considerably cheaper than they are, but they generally aren't. I would probably be looking out for maybe I don't know, ASRock Steel Legend or something possibly, or the MSI B550M VDH Pro Wi-Fi possibly.
If you go down to the bottom,
Yep.
one, it says what they're
Oh, yeah.
paired with.
So there's the answer. Well, I was looking to pair it with a 5600 and a 6650 XT. It's the only board that's available around €100 here right now, brand new. Yeah, that's the thing. If it's excuse me, if it's €100, it's not cheap. But then, if there's nothing else in that price bracket near where you're living, then you kind of just got to go with it. If you can spend maybe, I don't know, €10, €20 more for something a little bit higher up the stack, then it's going to be worth looking at. But ultimately, it's down to availability and pricing. So there you go. Hopefully that's answered your question. Welly Bob says, there's a question, I just noticed that. Any 6900 XT news, Mike? No, nothing at the moment. Still waiting. As far as I know, well, I haven't had any updates on it, but as far as I know, it's still possibly in the UK in a container somewhere, waiting for that container to be full up. Don't know. I've mentally, I've kind of written it off in my head. I know that's a stupid thing to say, but the way things have been going with graphics cards for me recently, I kind of feel like that's the way things are headed. And I've started to notice this week there is a very strange thing happening with my new Intel Arc A770, where just on the desktop, every now and then the screen will go blank. Now I thought it was my other card which was causing the problem. Now maybe this Intel Arc's got the same problem. I've tried DDU, I've tried new drivers, I've tried the beta drivers, and it did seem to stop for a little while. So I don't know if it's my monitor. Potentially it could be my monitor. I do need to connect up another monitor on my desk just to validate that it isn't my monitor, but I don't know. There doesn't appear to be that many people on the internet that have actually said, I've got an Intel Arc and I'm getting a random or intermittent blank screen. So I don't know. And it doesn't seem to do it in gaming, only in the Windows desktop. So I don't know whether it's something to do with the power management and it just stops outputting a display. I don't know. Very strange indeed. So still some work to go on there. Like I said, graphics cards at the moment is just, I'm having an absolute nightmare with them. So hopefully that answers the question.
In a weird accent, can they post that question again?
Yeah. In a weird accent, post your question.
Burn 92.
Okay, Sky says, it sounds like a cable issue, Mike. I've seen that several times depending on the refresh rate, etc. Yes, potentially that could be the case. I am going to get myself, I think I've got another DisplayPort cable behind me in the box, so I will replace the DisplayPort cable just to be on the safe side. I have recently gone from 60 Hz to 120 Hz. I can't go any higher than that because the driver doesn't support power saving at less than that. And yeah, Intel Arc is good, but I don't think it was ready. I think they should have worked on it and kept it, I don't know, done something with it. I think they released it hoping they would cash in on the lack of graphics cards that were about at the time because of the kind of mining and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Sky says, my Arc A770 has not had an issue with screen blanking. Glad to hear it. So it might be my cable, might be my monitor. Awesome. If it's my monitor, that's going to be great fun.
You can have mine.
Thanks.
Burn 92.
Oh, hang on. In a Weird Accent is back again. I think I've got that one there. So, In a Weird Accent... I can actually see it now. Question, Mike. I've got my upgrades, but sadly my RAM can't go past 5200 megahertz. I'd probably say it's up to my... Oh, crap. IMC. In my 7700X Corsair Dominator 5600 megahertz on a B650 Edge. Also my LAN Cool 216. Can I just... It ran out.
Let's go down a bit further. Set my front fans. I think it's one question more later. One comment later.
Can I just set my front fans to a low percentage, like 45 or... yeah, you can do. Sorry, that's two questions in one there, and that's confused me. So, the RAM thing... Corsair RAM, I hate. I genuinely hate. It's so popular and so cheap, and probably with upsetting a lot of people in the chat, I think it's absolutely awful. Actually getting the timings on Corsair RAM to work properly with one stick is normally okay. 2 sticks, problematic. 4 sticks, not a hope in hell. My suggestion would be BIOS updates. Make sure you've got the latest BIOS updates. If it's the B650 Edge Wi-Fi, there was another one out end of May, which I've just updated to on there. So that's on version 164. No, sorry, version 16 now. It was on 164, which is the beta. It's now on version 16, which is the full candidate release. And touch wood, has been relatively stable. So yeah, no real issues there, apart from the weird stuff happening on my pop-up chat. And when it comes to the fans, yeah, in the 216, I generally got mine set on a curve. Well, not a curve, but you know what I mean. So I think they start off at 20%, goes up to about 25%, then up to about 30%, and then from 30% up to 100% after like 70 degrees or something. So yeah, I keep them quite cool, or quite low RPMs. Around about 700 to 800 is about the maximum I have them at normal levels. Otherwise they do get a bit noisy, just because of the amount of air they're moving.
I've got quite a few questions now, but if you go up to Burn 92...
Burn 92.
It's quite far up now, I expect.
Burn 92, Burn 92. Where was that? Was that before that question?
Yeah.
Oh God. Burn 92, your video's been very helpful with my new build in the LAN Core 3, dealing with fans and RGB hubs. Much appreciated, no problem.
2 down.
I went with the B550 DS3H after one of your regulars mentioned it. It works with Ryzen 2600 and it worked. Then I upgraded to a 5800X. Mike, can I post my question again?
I thought there was a question with it. No, it wasn't, was there?
No, there wasn't. Leading me up a garden path there.
Sorry.
So I think that is answered.
Sorry. There is questions though. What's the next one?
WTAC, one more question, Mike. What are your thoughts on AMD's release of the 5600X 3D, exclusive to the US local micro centers? I'm kind of pissed about that. To be honest with you, I don't really... It's one of those things that AMD are kind of one of those companies where they've got almost like a small company mentality at times, even though they're a global player. And as soon as I saw that the way they were going to be doing it, because the processors are essentially just 5800s, which didn't cut the mustard, so they've lopped off a few cores to make it a sellable product, which is better than it being e-waste. Sorry, I got my chewing gum in. I'm gonna get rid of that. That's annoying. Yeah, I think what they've done is a good thing. The fact that they're releasing them to the public instead of throwing them out or whatever. I would have thought personally, unless there is an absolute ton of them, it would have made more sense to sell them to someone like Micro Center or iBuyPower or whatever as a special edition processor. But potentially there aren't that many, so maybe system integrators won't want to create a new SKU for that specific processor because there's maybe only 50 of them, maybe only 100 of them available. So to go to the effort of speccing up a PC with that processor for it to sell out within kind of minutes is a little bit pointless. So I think what they've done by going through Micro Center, which is probably, I would argue, the biggest of the US distributors in terms of retailers, especially ones that retail to enthusiasts. So I think it kind of makes sense what they've done. I'm guessing it's basically just a numbers thing. and saying it's just in the US, again, if there's only maybe a few trays of processors, which potentially it might be, it's hardly worth shipping an entire tray of processors to another country when you're already taking a bit of a hit anyway, because you're obviously selling a lower class processor than what it was originally intended to be. So yeah, it's kind of upsetting that we won't get to see them, or it's at least unlikely we're going to get to see them, but I'm glad that the ones that they're making are actually fruitful and turning out to be 5800X 3Ds and being the full product that it was expected, meaning the silicon quality is quite high. If there was an absolute glut on the market of 5600X 3Ds, that would mean that the process is very bad and very unreliable and doesn't work particularly well, and potentially could then show that there'll be a higher failure rate coming on in future years. So yeah, it's fine. I'm not too bothered about it. I probably wouldn't buy one anyway, because I don't really see the real benefit of the X3D chips at present, because games really aren't written for it specifically. Some are, some aren't. It's going to be a thing. As soon as that X3D technology is in consoles for the next gen, then obviously it's going to make a big difference. But until that is the time, I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
Super chat.
59er George 365. 49er. Sorry, what did I say? 59er.
Yeah.
Good job I didn't add another 10. Recently built an Aorus B550M Pro with 5900X liquid freezer and 3060 GPU. 980 Pro M.2. Your motherboard boss flash video saved my bacon. Thanks. You're very welcome. And thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Glad you got it all up and running. Yeah, the boss flash videos are starting to take another hit. So it means there must be like a fresh wave of people building or upgrading. Which is odd, because actually our Windows 10 and Windows 11 license key videos from Premium CD keys, normally we keep an eye on that to see what the kind of the numbers are like. And generally they're relatively stable, but there's been a definite, massive decrease in people watching the video and buying the subsequent keys. So whether or not people aren't buying new PCs or building new PCs now, I'm guessing that is probably the case. Let me know in the comments, are you at the moment put off building a new PC or a brand new PC?
And did they know they're only a fiver?
Yeah, and did you know the premium CD keys are only £5 for your Windows 10 or Windows 11 licenses?
And how much for Office?
An Office is £14, I think, £15. You can basically get Microsoft Office and Windows 10 or Windows 11 for less than €20, I think, at the moment. It's pretty damn good value for money.
And that is worldwide as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that is worldwide. Nicholas Barlow says, I bought 2 keys. Thank you for helping support the channel. If you could now buy another many, that would be really helpful. Thank you for supporting us. That's awesome. Rick H. GN said about 3 to 6 months supply. Is that of the processors? Mark Berry used the premium CD keys link last week. $4.99 well spent. Thank you very much. It is good value for money. It really is. I still get really pissed off watching other YouTube channels promoting like Who keys and basically there's a ton of different brands which are effectively all the same company anyway. They just changed the name. You'll notice a lot of their sites look very similar. It's because it's the same company. So yeah, they've approached us many times. Almost weekly we get an email from one of those companies from the same person saying, oh, we really would like you to sell our keys. Like, no, we've got a really good deal, really good thing going. It's saving us money. It's saving the viewers money. Why on God's green earth would I want to change to promoting another company?
And we don't.
There's no need.
We are
There's no need.
affiliated with Premium CDs.
We do
so
get a
they don't
kickback
pay
from
us.
it, but it's not a lot.
And they don't actually pay us.
We're
to
not
advertise, do they?
sponsored by them or anything. We just believe in them. I believe.
There was a question. I think.
Nick Parn says, damn great deal on premium CD keys, but no need for more.
Kenny D, is Windows 11 worth the upgrade now from Windows 10?
I would be rather biased because I actually really like Windows 11, love it or hate it. I actually have got really used to having everything in that central pane. I kind of like it. And actually using Windows 10 now and having to go over to the left-hand side every time to do something, it just seems really unnatural. I can understand now why Apple went over to that dock system many, many years ago. What was it, like 10, 15 years ago now? I think it works really well. It's the thing I don't like about Windows 11 is the same as what I don't like about Windows 10 is all the integrations. So like your OneDrive, Edge,
Spyware.
Yeah, all that kind of spyware telemetry stuff, and it's like you've got to have a login, you've got to have a username. I get it, I honestly do, because really an operating system should cost more in theory, so you are being subsidised effectively by all of that telemetry tracking. Well, they should cost, like, they charge like £100 for an OEM. I think a retail Windows license is something like nearly £200 or something stupid like that. At which point, if I was paying that amount, I would want them to say, right, okay, you're not going to get any telemetry, anything. We've had our money from you. That's it. Thank you very much. But they don't. So, yeah, I like Windows 11, and a few people ask this these days. Well, there's two aspects of it. First of all, Windows 10 is dead. There's no more updates for it unless there's going to be a real serious security vulnerability in Windows 10. There's basically going to be no real updates as such, so it is basically an end product, and they're not focusing on it at all, at least not for retail users. Whereas Windows 11 is their golden child at the moment, so that is what they're looking at, and that's what they're supporting more so, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it would it makes sense to go with Windows 11 and get used to it, because it is going to be the way of the world. And when Windows 12 comes out, which will basically be Windows 11 on steroids, if you're on Windows 10 and you've not done Windows 11, Windows 12 is going to be even more jarring. So I kind of like to go along with the flow and take the operating systems as they upgrade. I don't know, it just makes sense. It's rather than having that sort of big shock like there was going from maybe, I don't know, Windows 98 up to Windows 2000. That was a real jump. Even though effectively they looked the same, they worked in such massively different ways that it was like, oh my god, I don't like this. But I knew in my heart of hearts that kind of Windows XP was around the corner, etc. So it's kind of like, well, might as well get used to this, because this is going to be the way this is going to work. Thank you again for the super chat, George. 49er George. What was I saying there? I bought a Windows 10 Pro key. GPU needs to be swapped. Its utilization rises too early, 100%, but VRAM usage won't budge more than 1.5 GBs out of 12 GBs. Thanks for buying a Windows 10 key. Oh, I'm not too sure. Oh, your GPU needs to be swapped. Depends what resolution. If you're at 1080p, your utilization will probably be higher, but your VRAM usage will be lower. Jason Wood says, as you know, Mike, I just built my new gaming PC. Good stuff. David Aiken says, I like Windows 11, but I still have my taskbar to the left. I remember when Windows 11 was just coming out, and I think I even made a video on it, and how to make your taskbar and or your start bar go to the left hand side, because you couldn't do it as a default. You had to do like some registry tweak. I'm pretty sure I did a video on it. But even then, in my heart of hearts, I was doing the video thinking, I actually don't like it over the left now, I think. I don't know. William Bodie. Question. Why do I get ARC driver software for my iGPU? Oh, if you've got if you're using a 11th gen processor or newer and it's got integrated graphics, because the integrated graphics are Intel ARC compatible, or they're part of that same driver kind of family, you will get the option to install the ARC driver software control panel thing. So yeah, that is basically why. Even if you've got it not in use, like not plugged in, but it's still turned on in the BIOS, I think you still install the driver or have to install the driver. And even if you've got it disabled, I think you might anyway because of QSync or QuickSync built into the processor. Not too sure. It's very odd for me because my processor is has got built-in graphics, and it's the UHD 770, and the graphics card is the A770. So it's really easy to select the wrong graphics card because they're effectively the same name. You just see 770, it's like, yep, that's it. Then you realise it isn't, and it gets very slow. Mark Barry says, does Windows 10 Pro key work with a fresh install of Windows 11? Yes, it does. Yeah, don't buy the Windows 11 key. Always buy the Windows 10 Pro or Home and use that with Windows 11. You'll save yourself some money. Hello, Freedom House. How you doing? Let's see. Did anyone actually mention anything about the RTX 4060? I've not seen it yet. Rick H says, I loved Windows 2000 Pro. I did, to be honest with you. The service packs every now and then. Service pack 5, I think it ended on, didn't it? Yeah, Windows 2000 was a nice operating system. Once you got used to it, it was one of those things where you kind of, if you'd gone from Windows 98 or Windows Millennium, Windows Millennium looked very similar, but the footprint of the operating system was so much smaller. Whereas we went to Windows 2000, or like if you went up to Windows XP, all of a sudden you had tons and tons of files and all these things like user profiles and permissions, and it's like, oh my god, not used to this. So yeah, it was a little bit of a jump. David Underhill says £123.64 is the retail price for Windows for USB Windows 11 in Australia. Blimey, that's a lot of money.
They can use premium CD keys, they can't they?
Yeah, they can. David Underhill says, Xmas gift ideas, buy OEM Windows 10 keys for your relatives. It's not a bad idea.
Got questions coming in.
In a weird accent, what games have you bought on the Steam Summer Sale? I haven't even looked at the Steam Summer Sale yet. I can't imagine there being anything really... I don't know, there's not really many games at the moment I really are desperate to play. There is a couple coming up soon. Robocop. That is going to be, hopefully, an amazing game. If you grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and you were about when the original Robocop came out, it was like one of those, it was quite a cultural thing almost, and became a cult classic very quickly. I'm not too sure what the modern generation think of Robocop, being that the Robocop film, which was released maybe, I don't know what, 5 years ago, that I think was a relatively lukewarm reception, and it didn't have quite the same, I don't know, the first one was like really violent, quite bloody, quite gritty, which kept it a little bit more believable, and I think the CGI was very good for its time, because you didn't really have green screens and stuff back then. Everything was done with like squibs and detonations and molds, models, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was very... I think the ED209, the robots in there, look a little bit weird now, and they had like stupid things where they fall over and their legs would flap around and they'd make a noise like a chicken or something when they were upside down, which I guess was supposed to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but kind of did make it feel a little bit like, I don't know, yeah, a bit weird. Not the sort of thing you'd expect. But then we didn't know what to expect, because back then we were all young and robots weren't really a thing as much as they are these days. Anyway, moving on. Nick Barnes says, wasn't Windows 2000 for servers? I went Windows 98 to Vista. Well, Windows 2000 was really for, yeah, it was ideally for connectivity for servers, that sort of stuff, but also it was more for professionals. So if you were doing some sort of business stuff, it was just basically more stable, and you could have like logins, and a lot of offices ended up having it, but even if they weren't connected to a server, so each person could have their own login, go in, connect to their own email, rather than having like a shared device for everybody. Rick H says they also had Windows 2004 servers. Yeah, there was Windows 2000 Server, which was a thing. You had to pay user licenses to actually... That's the one thing which is always... I've never really understood this. Microsoft have what they call client access licenses, or CALs, user CALs. So if you're, as an individual, you went out today and bought a license to create a Windows server, so Windows 2003 2023 server. So you've bought that, you've installed it on your server hardware, you've then gone out and bought Windows 11 licenses or Windows 10 Pro licenses for the desktop PCs. You then still need to go and buy a license for each one of those PCs to connect to the server, called a user CAL. Now normally you get 5 included with the server license, but if you've got more than 5 people accessing the server, you have to buy additional client access licenses, which just seems like an absolute money spinner. Because you imagine people like Dell, where they've got thousands of servers running, and they've got all the people that work there remotely, inside, whatever. Each one of them has to have a client access license. So it's like you're paying double or triple, because you've bought the server, you've bought the Windows machines with the licenses for the operating system, and then you're paying another fee to access the server, which you've already bought. How that has actually continued to be a thing, I really don't know. It absolutely blows my mind that businesses will pay that. It just seems like absolute daylight robbery.
But what isn't?
Yeah, but then it's proper robbery. Good old Microsoft. Yeah, it is.
You've got quite a few questions.
Right, questions. Let's go back. Kenny D, has anyone noticed there have been a big influx of Lian Li 011 clones coming to the market for less than 011? Has anyone tried them out? There's a couple from Ions actually, which I've noticed last couple of weeks, which actually look really nice, and GameMax have got a new one out as well. So hopefully GameMax or Ions, if you're watching, please send review samples. They will be gratefully received. We would like to take a look at those. So yeah, there is quite a few. I don't know whether it's something to do with the design patent or something is maybe expired or something. Because what's the 011 been out for now? 5 years? I don't know. Maybe it is. Jason Wood says, Robocop, I can't wait to play it. Yeah, if it's good, it's going to be awesome. Hopefully it will be. I am quite looking forward to it, I've got to be honest with you. I was a big fan of Robocop when it came out. And yeah, it's one of those, it's like a cultural thing. If they get it right, the voice acting right, and the gameplay is like good, hopefully it'll have a game engine. I think it's written, I could be wrong, I think it's the Unreal Engine, so it could play like Fortnite, which actually is a pretty good game engine, and actually in terms of like the zoom weapons and stuff like that, I think that's going to work out well. Well, that's better. David Underhill says the RTX 4060 8GB is about $550 in Australia. RX 6750 12GB is $529 and a much better card. Definitely, yeah. I think the RTX 4060 is just one of those. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's actually, I don't know. It just confuses me how they've managed to do it on the market and actually still maintain the market share they have. Because the 3060 12GB, pretty decent card. The 3060 Ti, yeah, happy days, decent card. The only real tangible difference between the 3060 and the 4060 is the fact that it uses less wattage. I'm not too sure what the 3060 8GB or 12GB models use. I'm not sure what their sort of TDP is. I know the 3060 Ti is like 200 watts. So they are basically performing the same with the 4060 Ti for like 100 watts. So they're doing the same thing with a lot less power, with very similar performance. So, in all honesty, you have to applaud them for that to some extent, because they've managed to do what is normally done. Miniaturization. So they've made everything a little bit smaller. Arguably, when you make things smaller, it makes things more expensive as well. But when it comes to graphics cards, they're kind of like a universal size, really, in the grand scheme of things. So they're not really miniaturizing the actual cards or that. The process itself is what they're miniaturizing. And we're kind of getting a kick in the teeth for being the early adopters to that. If electricity is really expensive, like it is here in the UK, and I think Germany, I think as well, we've got pretty high energy costs, then it is one of those things you have to think about a little bit. But if you live in America where energy prices are relatively cheap at the moment, then it's like, well, if you're using 100 watts or you're using 200 watts or you're using 500 watts, does it make much of a difference? Probably not. So it kind of, it's almost like they've tailored that graphics card for a market which is kind of not really existing, or at least only in very small pockets. I don't know. Very strange indeed. David Underhill says, Vista, the operating system from hell. Yeah, Windows Vista was awful. Windows Vista was one of those, the first experience of Windows Vista I had was a Toshiba laptop, which Kath and myself went to PC Broad in Bristol, in Cribs Causeway when it was still there. And at the time...
You what? Say it again. What's not there now?
PC Broad, Cribs Causeway.
Yeah.
And I just started a business and I was like, right, I need a laptop. Realistically, I need a laptop. So I went and bought it. It's one of those kind of business purchases almost. And it had Windows Vista on it. I think I had 2 gigs of RAM. Might have been 4, but I think it was 2. I'm pretty sure it was 2 gigs of RAM and like a dual core processor. And it ran like an absolute dog. It was absolutely horrendous because Vista really needed 4 gigs of RAM, I think, or at least a graphics card with a certain spec. And basically all the laptops on the market didn't meet that spec. So there was like 2 versions of Vista. There was a Vista Premium, a Vista Home, and a Vista Basic, I think it was. And like it was fine for a Vista Basic, but it looked like trash. So all the nice features in Vista that you wanted didn't run on the laptop. Anyway, yeah, it was bad. Didn't like it. Right, let's see what else is being said here. Is there any more questions?
There's quite a few.
Well, I can't see any queues.
I don't know if they've got queues.
The bastards.
But I can't stay up there.
I can't. Yeah, I can't see any. Just scanning for your questions. Nick Barnes says, Mike, it's okay saying 4060 uses less power, but how long to save £300 worth of electricity? Well, that's the thing. It's not really like the one-off cost, is it? It's the ongoing cost. So if you were thinking, right, do I buy a 4060 Ti or do I buy a 3060 Ti? 3060 Ti is going to be using, like, if you're playing games a lot, 200 watts, 150, 200 watts, pretty much most of the time gaming.
I like that thing.
So, yeah, if you're going to be gaming for, I don't know, 5 hours a day, for argument's sake, 5 hours at using 100 watts more is quite a lot. That's like leaving your kitchen, hallway and landing lights on for 5 hours, which you probably wouldn't do. Some people do, I don't know. I'm a bit tight when it comes to electricity, and Kath's really on it as well, so we generally don't waste much electricity if we can possibly help it. But yeah, I do understand where you're coming from. And yeah, you're not saving like £300. It's the difference between the 2 cards, which they're basically the same sort of price, unless you buy a used one. I don't know. It's all a bit of a mess. I guess the selling feature as well is the DLS 3 and frame generation, which I guess is a kind of, it's a cool thing, but then that also adds a little bit of latency. So again, it's one of those things where it's not really a perfect thing, because if you say, right, 3060 Ti is going to give you 100 frames per second, for example. The 4060 Ti in the same game with frame generation and DLSS 3 on is going to give you 150 frames per second. say it's like an extra 50% it gives you in terms of frame rate. Firstly, the difference between 100 frames per second and 150 frames per second, realistically to most people, isn't going to make a damn bit of difference anyway. And if you're using frame generation, there's going to be a slight bit of a penalty for lag, or input latency, or latency of the graphics card. Sorry, cat's having a bit of a funny 5 minutes. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, comparing the two, if you look at the raw numbers, yes, the 4060 or 4060 Ti with frame generation is going to be better frames per second. But is it going to actually feel like a better gaming experience? Which is why we go back to what I said at the very beginning of the stream. The way that we review or look at reviews for graphics cards, I think needs to really... It needs to stay the same, but it also needs to change. Which is a kind of weird thing. Because we're so used to, like, I've done it myself. I do a review of something, I'll say, well, this gets an average, blah, 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 whatever frames per second, and it's playing this at 100 frames per second. And it feels quite smooth. But without actually having some kind of like ticker on the screen saying, this is the average latency between frames. This is what it felt like. And again, some people are going to be more sensitive to that frame generation or that kind of stuff that's going on. So yeah, it's I don't know. I think we've come to a point where pure figures in terms of FPS are no longer really the de facto thing. So a product isn't necessarily better just because it has more frames per second. And in fact, actually, I've played many games. I've done something about this week, actually. I've done 3 videos based on how to use the overlays for graphics cards. So I've done AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel. And how to actually tune your graphics card a little bit and how to look out for problems that might be happening, such as lag and latency. And I noticed as well that just because you're getting more frames per second actually can add more latency to the actual image, which actually makes the game worse to play. So sometimes it's actually worth looking at the latency more than the FPS. So the screen is being drawn at a much better speed and it feels more fluid, but the numbers are lying to you because in theory it seems like it's slower, but actually it's more responsive and it feels better. So there is definitely that to be considering as well. Again, Deja Vu. It's 49er George 365 again. What's it? Do you think my 3060 is normal if I don't PC game but ramps up to 90% utilization? I stream to Discord and Twitch using capture card and consoles. Well, 90% utilization if you're streaming is a little bit excessive. That doesn't sound quite right. Is that the GPU utilization or RAM utilization or rendering engine? If I don't PC game. It depends what it is you're streaming to Discord and Twitch though. Because whatever you're using your PC for whilst you're doing it, or your console, yeah.
And you don't have to pay to ask.
Not an easy one to do. Yeah, you don't have to pay money to ask questions. You can just ask questions. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, that doesn't sound entirely normal. I would suggest, actually, if you can, join our Discord and we'll try and get some more information out of there and ask some questions. But yeah, 99% or 90% utilization is what you'd normally see if you were in a game, really. Streaming wise, like at the moment, that's streaming. GPU, I can't really tell you GPU utilization. Actually, yes, I can. Hold the line caller. I've got to try what the hotkey is now. I've done so many this week. Alt and... Actually, I'll just get up on the screen, that'll be easier. Where's my mouse? Ah, I didn't do it, did I? GeForce. I didn't reinstall it. No, I can't show you that. I did have GeForce Experience installed on there, so I could see the overlay to see what was going on. But I've taken it off because I was doing other graphics cards and I haven't put it back on. Alt and V. Yeah, I don't think I've even got it on there. Let's try Alt V. No, that's just doing something in the OBS software. Furious Echo 9101. Question: what are the best RGB fans for motherboards with no RGB header?
And they also asked another one, how to stop GPU sagging.
Oh, right, okay. GPU sagging, that is a pretty easy one. Just get support of some sort. You can get tons of them, especially ones with like RGB and all sorts. Where's the one that Bob sent? Did I have it here just now when I was moving the graphics cards around? No, but basically you can get little ones, or even if you know someone's got a 3D printer, just say, look, this is how much I need it, and just get someone to 3D print one. That's the easiest way. Or a very cheap and effective way of doing it, if you just want to be an absolute cheapskate, and if you've got a spare pen, basically an old biro, like a Bic pen or something like that. Literally just get your card, get it straight, measure from the case to the top of there, get your Bic pen, mark it up, just cut through it with a knife or a hacksaw, and literally just support it with a clear pen, like the inside of a Bic pen. I've done that before now, and it actually works fine, and unless you look really close, you never see it anyway. If you've got a case which is a specific colour, like a black case or a white case, then just get like an old white pen, like a felt tip pen with a white thing, and just get one of those. It doesn't look that bad. Yeah, proper Blue Peter style with toilet rolls. So yeah, best RGB fans for motherboards with no RGB header. Realistically, there aren't, because you're still going to want to plug them into something, because otherwise you're just not going to have any RGB. So you do need a controller of such. I would say probably the best ones are the Up Here. I can't remember the exact model. We've done a review on them before. If you check the channel, look in previous videos, there's an Up Here set which came with a controller. And that was actually quite good, because it had, you could wire up to the reset button, so you can just press your reset button to cycle through different types of lighting styles. That is pretty good. There's also a GameMax one we've done, GameMax ARGB hub, which we reviewed the older version. They've now got a V2 version, which apparently is much better, and the PWM works better. That's got a little remote control, so you can change your lighting, change your fan speeds, etc. So that's probably worth taking a look at. Then you can use whatever fans you like, which is basically down to you. Anything from like kind of £5 up to £50 each. David Aiken says, many people forget that the 3060 was a massive disappointment at launch. Only marginal gains over the 2060. Basically a 2060 Super. Big slowdown in advances considering the 2060 matched the GTX 1080. Yeah, there is. I'm going to say it. I say it every time. I've been saying it in comments recently. The fact that Nvidia, AMD and Intel, the majority shareholders of each one of those companies, are the same group of companies, there will never ever be that kind of massive jump in performance again. It's not going to happen, because they don't need to compete with each other. There's no reason for them to compete, because it's like, there's like me now. There's no point me competing with viewers of the stream, because you're watching the stream. You're all watching the stream anyway. So to segregate you into a certain camp or other, or to give some of you a better experience than others, makes no sense whatsoever, because ultimately it's my stream, so it doesn't really matter. And that's the thing with AMD and Nvidia. Like, yeah, if they wanted to, they could come out with a card which was much better, make them less profits, etc., and AMD could do the same thing. But why would they bother? Because then all they're doing is kicking the other company to the curb, but they're the same company. So it's absolutely pointless. So don't expect to see any one company come through and be this kind of saviour of PC gaming, or to give us this exceptional upgrade in performance for basically the same money as the other company, because it's not going to happen. It will not have happened, and it's not going to happen again. It just won't. You can almost guarantee it, which I think is why the PC market is dying. I think there's still interest in it, and there's still enthusiasts, but we don't have the level of competition that we used to have, because they don't need to. There's no reason for them to. And it's really sad. But it is what it is, I suppose.
Ankit Handy.
Ankit Pandy. How is it now to buy Core i5 10400 processor for gaming? Well, that would depend. If you've got a 10th generation board, or you can pick up 10th generation boards very cheaply and you can get the processor cheaply, then yeah, sure, why not? The 10400 is still a very good gaming processor. It's ultimately, graphics cards these days do most of the lifting work anyway. So the processor and the actual platform itself don't really have a huge bearing on it. I wouldn't want to go any older than 10th gen, but yeah, it's fine. 6 cores, 12 threads, happy days. Personally, I think if I was buying another platform now and I was building a system, I probably wouldn't go with the 10400. I would probably go with either the 3600 or the 5600 on an AM4 platform. My personal preference. I feel that, especially here in the UK and probably in Europe, you get much more bang per buck. The motherboard as well. The thing is, 10400 is going to be a locked processor. So you're not going to be able to overclock it at all. You're not going to be able to make really any tweaks to it. Whereas if you go with a 3600 or 5600, it's unlocked processor. So if you get even a modest B450 board or B550 board, when it starts to get a little bit slower or feels a little bit slower, you can overclock it and tweak it a bit. Whereas sadly with Intel being locked processors, there's essentially nothing you can do. So the performance you get is the performance you get. Then that ain't really going to change a great deal. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it is a good processor. I wouldn't say it's a bad processor. There's a lot of other things to be taken into consideration for that.
Can big.
Can big. Centro del Estudios. Nice name. Hi Mike, what video card do you recommend to play at 4K without having to spend so much money? I have an i5 13600K processor. It depends what games is you want to play at 4K, and do you want to play 4K Ultra or do you want to play 4K medium or low? To be honest with you, 4K medium or 4K low is still going to look absolutely amazing and will look better than 1080p Ultra or even 1440p Ultra. So you can really afford to go like 4K low settings and it'll still look pretty decent. So you don't necessarily need an absolute ball-shatteringly good GPU for that. But having said that, probably if you're looking for, I don't know, depends how much you want to spend. I would probably say like a 6800, 6900, something like that. Maybe 3070, 3080 possibly. They should be able to do 4K at lower settings for most games. And also, you didn't really say what frames per second and what sort of games. If it's going to be like fast, twitchy shooters and stuff, they don't really work great at 4K. Some do, some don't. Tough question. Barlow says, BlackRock and Vanguard own almost everything in the world. Hallelujah, brother. Yeah. There's, well, yes, State Street, or whatever it is. There's basically 5 companies, and between them, they essentially are everything. And BlackRock and Vanguard also have shares in each other. So effectively, kind of, neither one of them is going to screw the other one over, because if they do, that affects their shares, and their shares affect their shares, and yeah, this all basically like a money go round, which is
between them.
Yeah, it's a money circle between them all. So yeah, they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make any real innovation. They've got no reason to. They don't need to take the risks. So yeah, thank you, Paolo.
Cambic says thanks.
Not a problem. I'm getting questions come through in like big chunks. Ordinary Dude, Mike, do you think that the all-in-one mini PC form factor will continue to grow enough to compete with consoles and lower end gaming PCs? Whew, that is a good question. The thing is, I don't know. I think consoles
Hello, Poppy Dora.
and mini PCs have both got their very own distinct kind of markets, which they are more favourable towards. Hello, Pops. Hello, Babs.
Oh, you love Gran.
Strange little cat. Yeah, I think consoles do. There's some people that just don't like computers. They don't like the hassle. They just want to be able to go home after work, hard day's work, press a power button, pick up a controller, and basically pick up where they left off with very little kind of interaction. And maybe like bring friends round, throw them a controller, play some FIFA, whatever. So it's more of a social gaming experience, I think personally. Like
Later, Poppy.
yeah, like a social as in like your home. So friends round, brothers, sisters, etc. That kind of thing. Whereas I think the PC is what it is. It's a personal computer. It's not really designed to be used with other people. It's designed for connecting to other people, but not used with other people. So then you look at the form factor. The form factor of a console is designed to do some very specific tasks and to be a relatively, well, actually, essentially a completely closed ecosystem. So other than plugging in or connecting to via Bluetooth or your monitor outputs, potentially a keyboard and mouse, other than that, it's not designed to be changed, touched, or do anything with. So you buy it, it has a finite lifespan. Whereas the computer tries to do a bit of everything. So your computer can be a word processor, it can be an email station, it can be a web browser, it can be a gaming machine, it can be a communications machine, it can be a creation machine. So it tries to do a lot more things. And to have the flexibility to do all those things, it needs to be a certain size. So I think you've got a distinct crossover. So if you just want a small computer, then things like the B-Links and those smaller kind of PCs which are pre-built, they are kind of upgradable to some extent. Pops, don't show your butt.
Not only fans now, is it?
So like the B-Link computers, those little tiny things, I think they compete well with consoles, and they do it on a much smaller form factor, and arguably are kind of better than consoles in a lot of ways, and can game as well as them, especially with some of the newer chipsets. So I think the ITX form factor, or the small form factor PC or mini PC, is almost like a hybrid. So it's a kind of, it wants to be a desktop PC and give you the flexibility of a desktop PC. So you can put in larger graphics cards, you can put in water coolers, you can put in all those kinds of things, and you can upgrade it. Obviously, swap the motherboard out, change out the RAM, change processor, all these things. So there's only a certain amount of size that you can really get that down to before you start losing that flexibility. So I think they're all going to be, they all have their own usage, and you can tell that there's such a massive market for those little tiny PCs. Loads of new brands come onto the market which are doing those. You only got to look on AliExpress or Amazon. There's thousands of companies all touting these little PCs, and then you've got the slightly better ones which are more expensive, and then you've got your ITX boxes, and micro ATX is starting to have a little bit more of a upsurge as well. So the original question, will it compete enough? I don't think it has to grow anymore. I think it's grown to the size that it's comfortable with, unless there's going to be some really drastic changes in integrated graphics, such as like the Ryzen 8000 series potentially is going to have RDNA 3 built in and should be very good. If we get to a point that then that is essentially rivaling what the console can do, again, I don't think it will happen, because consoles are designed with that certain market. Consoles are made by obviously Sony, Microsoft, both of which
BlackRock.
Majority shareholders, yep, BlackRock, Stateside, Vanguard. So they're not really going to want to destroy another business by making theirs amazing And likewise, they're not going to want to let other companies such as AMD, Intel, etc. make a real killer processor, which could then kill off Sony's business or the Xbox business or the console business in general, like Nintendo. So yeah, it's all kind of, I don't know. It's a very, very complex thing with so many individual moving components and things going on in the market and also the technology that it's hard to say that one is competitive with the other or not. I don't know. I don't think it's a question that can be definitively answered, but I do think it's a very interesting concept. And in the ideal world, it'd be great to see the competition hotting up so that it gets to the point that maybe we don't need consoles. Or perhaps consoles get so good that we don't need to upgrade PCs. Or they become more modular. But then they won't, because then that's going to kill off one element of the business and open up things like fraud, such as copyright theft and all that sort of stuff. Games are starting to go more and more online. We've always been threatened with the fact that Microsoft would let Windows be a software as a service, or SaaS, in which case then everything is online and there's not going to be any kind of CD key hackery or backdoor hacks or that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think, what's the key gens, stuff like that are going to be a thing of the past, because the operating system is going to be yours and you pay for it on like a monthly basis or something, like a subscription.
Everything will be subscription.
It's a very potentially very dystopian future, but potentially it could be a really good future. It just depends which way things go. David Aitken says RX 6800 used. Can pick them up for 350ish used. You can actually pick up a brand spanking new MSI RX 6800 16 gig Trio X Gaming, which is like the flagship card almost. I think it is the flagship card. £428 currently on Amazon. This is like, that's damn good. Against the used card for 350, I think I would take the brand new card for the extra 50-60 quid, because that is like, you got a guarantee and it's brand spanking new. Although potentially if you do need to do anything with it under warranty, then you might not get the best of treatment, but again, that depends who you buy it from. If you buy it from Amazon, you'll probably be alright. Right, where did I get to? Freedom House 1984, 3080 12 gig used, are going for under 400 quid. Works decent at 4K. Thank you, Freedom House 1984. Cambig says, I want to buy an RTX 3080 Ti. Thank you very much, Mike. You're very welcome. If you want to buy me one as well, please feel free. Bob's got in there with the money circle jerk. It is, yeah, very much so. Des Ducker says, I had a 3080 Ti. It is a super card. Good stuff. Ankit says, thanks for your response, Mike. No problem at all. Lucky Man, MSI approved. Question, how come I can't unlock my control, MV control on a 4070, but I can undervolt the card and OC it up to 3000 megahertz stable? You're probably asking the wrong person. When it comes to overclocking and unlocking all that stuff, honestly, I try to leave it as far alone as possible, unless it's causing me temperature issues, in which case I will probably undervolt rather than overclock. So I don't know the answer to that question, I'm afraid. What do you reckon, Poppy? What do you think is the answer to the question? No, simply not interested. Ankit says, I want to know about Intel processor, specifically with less than 100 watt TDP and capable of gaming right now. Don't want to spend much. Does it have to be Intel specifically? If it's less than 100 TDP. Thing is, Intel TDPs are like really messed up. So the TDP that they rate is really just kind of guesswork. And they largely, under all core loads, will go way over that. So if you're worried that your motherboard or your power supply might not be suitable for something over 100 watt TDP, then yeah, I don't know what to say. I think the 10400 is probably going to be your best bet. Maybe a 10600 if you can get one at a decent price. Chris Hartford, Mike, Calf, what's the best bang for buck on GPU on AliExpress at the moment? Are you being facetious, Chris? Best bang for buck GPU on AliExpress at the moment. To be honest, it's a really tough one. Like, I would say probably the RX 580 SP 2048s. They're like £50 or less. And an RX 580 or RX 570, for argument's sake, is still actually a pretty decent card for gaming for mid to low end systems. Yes, it's not going to have all the eye candy, and it's probably going to be like 1080p medium or 1080p low in some instances, but it's still cracking for 50 quid. When you think the difference used to be like for an APU. So if you went from like I'm trying to think, a Ryzen 5 2400? No, what was the 4 core? I can't think now, in the 2000 range. Wow, my brain has completely gone. 3000 range. Basically, it used to be like about £50 or more to go between a 6 core without an APU to a 6 core with an APU. So now you're much better off buying the dedicated processor with the full PCI Express lanes, etc., and buying a 50 quid graphics card. The RX 580 will easily whoop the pants of any integrated graphics on the market at the moment anyway. So it is a much better buy, especially at the lower end of the market. In terms with the best bang for buck, it's tricky. Because at the moment, the RX 5700 is about £100 if you can get a seller which will sell one to you. On the flip side of that, I've noticed recently the 6500 XT is now down to about £100, £109, which arguably isn't going to be as fast, but it's brand spanking new, newer technology using a lot less power. So that's actually not looking too bad. For £100 for a 6500 XT is like, I think that's pretty good. And they're not that awful, but I don't know. The graphics card market at the moment is a bit of a nightmare. I think actually in the next couple of weeks it should get better, noticeably, because I think Nvidia and AMD are both going to be at the point where they're not selling a lot of inventory, and then the parent companies are going to say, well, why are you sitting on all this stock? Like, we have warehouses full of stuff. Why are you not selling this stuff? And then they'll be like, well, nobody wants to buy it. So they'll be like, right, price reductions all round. And then we'll start buying stuff and it'll get cheaper. And we go through that process. And then the run up to Christmas will come along and things will start getting priced up again. You can almost guarantee it.
Just like they've dropped the price of the milkshake. They put the prices of the milkshakes up in Sainsbury's, didn't they?
Yeah.
Drop them on special offer this week to what they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, it's that typical thing, isn't it? Jack up the prices because it's Amazon Prime Day coming soon. Amazon Prime Day, I think, is the 11th and 12th of July. So at the moment, if you're planning to buy anything, I would potentially hold off a little bit longer. Or do yourself a favour and get one of those price tracking apps, or go to Camel and look at the prices. Because you'll notice prices are going to slightly gradually go up a little bit, just so they can drop them on Prime Day. Happens every single year. There's so many companies that do it, especially in the computer industry here in the UK. There are a couple which I'm not going to specifically name, but they know who they are. And they do it every year, every sales time, every holiday season, whatever. Gradually, prices start ticking up. And all of a sudden, wow, 50% off. It's like, well, it's not, is it? It's like 25% off because you've already jacked the price 25%.
If you're lucky. It's a big disappointment, Prime Day every year.
Prime Day disappointments. Here we go. Ugly Bob says 57 XT in my opinion. Yeah, I think that is actually, they're about 120 at the moment on AliExpress. But then you can pick them up here in the UK for about 150 now. So, I don't know. Arguably you do get some warranty of AliExpress, but then you've got to wait and see if it actually turns up. It's that usual thing, isn't it?
Speed up a bit on the
Alright,
chat.
I'll scroll to the bottom. Oh god.
You'll miss loads now.
David Aikens says, Mike, that RX 6800 has crept up to 439 now. Can see that being a Prime Day offer. Yeah, there you go. Mike, the RX 6600, only 140 GDP in Oz. The RX 6500 not sold here. Yeah, Australians get a really good deal on the RX 6600. I don't know why it is. Very strange. Make Kath and Mike happy with a like, please, people, says William Bodie. I agree. Chris Hartford says, good shout, hang on for Prime Day. Yeah, you never know. The Prime Day sales are excellent for saving money in two ways. Because first of all, you're not going to buy stuff now, so you're going to hold on to your money a little bit longer. Then if the Prime Day sales suck and you don't buy anything, think of the money you saved. And if there is a bargain, you've saved some money on what you would have spent. This is win-win. So the next 2 weeks are going to be absolutely horrendous for Amazon affiliate commission. But I don't care. I'd rather that than people paying too much for stuff, because it happens all the time. Premium CD keys. Matthew Day says, dare I risk a £49 and £3 B550 AliExpress board? I can't say anything, because actually today I've further destroyed my B550 Gaming Plus motherboard. The brand spanking new one, which I bent a pin on, trying to install a USB 3.0 header. I had a go today, again, at trying to desolder the pin and replace the pin, and I think I must be an absolute imbecile or something, or there must be just some knack to soldering which I just cannot grasp. I've tried everything. It is a very small pin, it's a very, very small solder joint. I've done some mouse switches, and that wasn't too bad.
Shut up, the air is blue.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I don't seem to be able to get flux to work.
You are absolutely...
I put a little bit of flux on, I put a lot of flux on. The theory is, if you use flux, it's supposed to be that the solder kind of goes more liquid and follows the joints and doesn't go everywhere. But even if I'm using loads of solder, it seems that the solder just wants to bubble up on the end of the tip, and I cannot desolder a pin for love nor money. It doesn't seem like it's getting hot enough. So I've tried desoldering with a desoldering pump. I've desoldered with the braid. I've tried adding more solder to increase the heat mass. Can't do it. So
still...
I give up on that totally.
His offer to solder is still open.
Thank you very much. I might take you up on it, although I think at the moment, in my frustration of trying to remove something, I've actually scratched some layers off the board. So I've got a feeling that the USB 3.0 header is basically screwed. I should have just left it alone or gave it to a professional. But I tried, and yeah, it didn't work out. So
basically, you did what you blame me for doing to the Wii.
Yeah, again.
So you did it the first time around, blame me.
I don't care. Basically, I am rubbish at soldering. I just cannot.
You are heavy-handed.
I'm heavy-handed, but I spent almost 2 hours today trying to desolder a pin. I tried on another board. I just cannot get the solder. Like, I've seen Adam and IT do it, and literally he's got the board upright, and he's like, boom, bit of heat on the back of it, pliers there, pulls out the pin, puts a new one in, and it's like 5-minute job. I'm like, I've got this thing, and I'm literally holding it on the board for like a minute, and the solder isn't even turning to liquid. I do not understand it. So I thought maybe it's because it's not getting hot enough. Could be a thing. So I got out my old electric soldering iron, which I've got it down here somewhere, and put that on there. Exactly the same. So yeah, I give up. Soldering, I think. Freedom House says there is something that lowers solder temps so it melt faster. I think it's called low metal. I'm going to have to... Well, I don't think I'm going to bother, because I think I'm just going to end up making it worse. And at the moment, I've ended up... I just bought a PCI Express adapter card, and I've plugged the header into there. So I'm going to sell the PC with that in there and say, look, I'm going to sell it cheap just because the USB 3 header is useless, essentially. So, yeah. USB 3.0 header is a joke. I hate them. Horrendous. William Bodie, can you not find a cheap USB PCI card and make a video about it? I have done, and I did make a video on it. I might try and do another video. It's a bit pointless because I have kind of done one. But that was, for me, it's not the better way, because it's frustrating to me, because I understand the principles and I've got the equipment, but something is just like, I don't know, I just don't understand it. I really don't get it. I get it sometimes with car stuff, but I know the principles, and I'll go out and I'll try and fit something to a car, and it's like, it physically will not do it. Then someone else will go and do it, and they'll be like, there you go.
Left-handed.
And but it's like, there's clearly a knack to some things. Most things I'm alright with, I can get by, but for this, the soldering, it's frustrated me immensely. Because I know the theory, I've got the tools, I've got the space, I've got the time, and I've done it, and it's like, why does this just not work as it's supposed to? There's clearly something I'm missing, but I don't understand what it was. I did actually plan either tonight or next week to do a stream on soldering.
Over 18s.
Yeah, over 18s only because of the language. I don't know. I cannot get it to, it's extremely frustrating. Something which is so simple. But yeah, normally, like, if you solder something, or you touch the solder on the back of something, the other end of it kind of gets loose. And you know that the solder is melted. It's because the pin's loose. But it's just, I've tried it on 2 boards and it will not do it. Both of them are MSI boards, to be fair. But I don't think it's MSI's fault. I think it's just, there's something I'm not doing right. Anyway, moving on. Chris Hartford, leaded solder, 450 degrees max heat, but you have to work quickly. Well, I've been trying to do it at 350 degrees, and I've tried it at 400 degrees. 400 was slightly better results, but it's still not hot enough for me to actually remove the pins. I don't know how.
Did you touch the end to make sure it was heating up?
Yeah, I spat on the desk and was like, there's probably a mark on the desk here somewhere burnt, where I was like, is this thing even fucking hot? I was getting really upset. I was really, really pissed off. Lucky Man says the PCB absorbs a lot of the heat you put in. Yeah. Maybe it's something I'm doing wrong. I've seen, like, using the exact same soldering iron that I've got, that Colin graciously sent in to us, or paid for us to buy. I've seen people doing it with exactly the same piece of kit, and they're like, it just works. So I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. Driving me mad. Absolutely mad. David Underhill says, maybe I should do a video of how to desolder pins using the correct techniques. I would love it if somebody did, because I've watched at least 30 videos on YouTube of different soldering things, especially the pins, like USB 2, USB 3. No, because the Northridge Fix one doesn't. I've followed it along doing what they said, almost to the letter, and it still didn't work. So there's something they're not telling me. I can't be that much of an idiot. Like, I understand how these things work. I get it, and it's not rocket science. It's like hot thing, solder, hot thing turns solder to liquid metal.
It's about technique, not tools, and
technique is everything. But then even with kind of brute force sometimes, or brute, just like the best tools or good tools normally will assist if you don't have technique. But yeah. Anyway, let's move on because I can feel my blood pressure going up. Oh dear.
Have you missed any questions?
Matthew Day says, I destroyed a board being impatient while desoldering the boss to hack the password. Some larger stuff I can do relatively okay, but I'm not sure if the flux I've got is even like working. Because I've seen other people use flux and you can see it's just like it makes such a neat job of it. I don't know. Maybe there's something. I might have to do it on a Discord call at some point. Get a few of you on Discord and I'll try it, and you can all kind of be on a call and tell me what I'm doing wrong. I think that's probably a good way. Thank you, All Man Withers, for that.
I'm worse than you at it.
Yeah,
I haven't tried this time
it doesn't
round,
help that my eyesight. I don't think I've got the best of eyesight to do it, because I can see things okay. I'm not blind or nothing, but I get to a certain point, certain closeness, and it goes out of focus. And trying to do the pins with the lights and everything is like, so I think I probably do need like some sort of magnifying thing. But even that, saying that, like, I looked at it with my phone, I took some pictures, and it's like, it's just, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Dave Underhill says, I even fixed my digital blood pressure monitor. Right, questions. What did I get to? Someone asked questions.
Really random. Have your roadworks finished? Yeah.
Yes, roadworks are all done. Yeah, all good. Oh, Will Hatton. Sorry, I saw that one there. I bought myself a CTE C750 Air for my birthday. Have you tried it yet? Yes, I have. I didn't get the Air version though. I had the TG version. The review for that should be going out probably about the next week or so. The CTC 750 for me is way too big. It's a lovely case, and I can't believe how they've done it so cheap for what you actually get and the sheer size of it and like all the cool stuff. But for me, I think it's just way too big. Like, I thought the Series 500 was a big case. And it is quite a big case, and the CT 750, literally, I can almost put that inside it. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I said this to Thermaltake when they first came out. They're like, what do you think about it? I said, I honestly don't like it. I don't like inverted cases. And the whole point of CT, or the central thermal efficiency, is the fact that your motherboard's in the middle, fans on every side, so your hot stuff is in the middle. But you have to have the motherboard inverted, because obviously the IO's got to come out the top or somewhere. And I don't like it. I don't like inverted PCs. I never have done, and I can't think I ever will. So it is a shame, because it's a lovely case. I'm not too sure if the CTE 500 might be more up my street, being a little bit smaller. I don't know. We've got, for those of you that are new here or have not been around long, this room that we film in, basically our dining room, is 4 meters by 3 meters. So that's 9 foot by 12 foot. That ain't a lot of room, especially when you've got 1, 2, 3 PCs, a desk, camera equipment, lighting, etc. So yeah, we don't have a lot of room for computers. And I don't think our case is necessarily that abnormal for the UK. Most houses, similar sort of size. So a big case for UK households, and I guess for other places around the world, smaller is probably more beneficial. But yeah, the CTE 750 is a cracking case. I would love to do a proper full-on building one, but I don't know. I don't like the layout. I really don't. I don't know what it is. It just really messes with my head. For me, it's a little bit too compromised. I don't like having like cables come out through the top, and then, especially for here, if I had it here, I'd go mad, because I'd have to run extensions from every port down to the side so I can actually plug things in. I think it looks great, and it's exceptionally well built, but not entirely for me. Where did I get to? Will says, yeah, I thought, what have I done? It is massive. Yeah, I do like, yeah, Will saying there, I do like having the GPU hang down facing, front facing though. Yeah, that is actually quite cool. I do like that. That is a very a cool and unusual look. I think if you do the right system in there, you can pull it off and it'll look absolutely banging. But for me, I don't know. There's just too many things about it which make it, it's like, if it was smaller, I could probably get in with it. The fact it's rotated, there's quite a few things which just bother me a little bit about it.
Hey, Flamey. Come on.
Matthew Day says a tip shape can help. Single flat side is good for soldering, but a 90-degree chisel tip can be better for getting into desolder. Well, I used two different tips, one of which was like I guess, well, it's like a 45-degree slant on it, like that. Like cut off, like almost like a permanent marker. And then the other one was like a fine pin. And neither one of them, I actually, unusually for me, I actually waited for the tips to actually cool down before I took them off. Then I tried a third tip on my electric one, and that was more like a chisel tip. And yeah, I just didn't seem to be able to get enough heat into the solder. I don't know. JB27 adding a like, but going back to other things. Thank you very much for adding the like. William Bodie says, the things I did buy for you, there is even a LED magnifying glass with 5 essays. Not sure what that means, but... Oh, 5 levels. 1 to 5. Got it. Dutch Jan says, get the Sharkoon Rev 100. I think I've had that before. I think I already did.
I don't know.
Or was the Rev... No, the Rev 220 I think we had. Which was reversed. Chris Hartford says, the superfine tips, solder tips don't transfer heat too well. I end up using a large tip most of the time. Well, that's why I thought I'll try various tips, because you'd think that one of them should do it. And bizarrely, I don't know how I managed to do this. I was using flux, which is supposed to make the solder flow, but I managed to get solder on one of the other pins, and I could not get the solder off the pin. I got to the point where I'm getting it hot, and I'm literally kind of scraping it off and trying to flick it off, and it wasn't coming off. So much so that I struggled to get the little plastic bit back on the motherboard. I really shouldn't be allowed near it, and I actually scraped off some of the top layer of the PCB as well, so I can see tracks. So I think the USB header is toast. I don't know. It's such a shame. I'm so gutted myself. Firstly, for making the mistake to begin with, and secondly, for not being able to repair it. That is super annoying. The last time I did that was with the car, and I had to sell the car.
And thirdly, he was spending as much to try and fix it.
Yeah.
That's what it cost to break it.
Still. Hey ho. Life goes on. Let's see, what else was there this week which has gone on, which I've been meaning to discuss? I'm not sure. Throw us over one of those things, Kath, a brioche roll. I'm literally, today, all I've eaten is 2 tuna sandwiches. I'm starving.
One tuna sandwich.
So I'm going to have, this is reduced butter brioche rolls. Unfortunately, I don't have a big ass tub of, what's it called, Nutella to dip into this, which would be awesome. I'll be absolutely off my rocker with sugar. Nick Barnes says, would it be easier to change the port rather than a single pin? Mate, if you'd have seen me trying to get a single pin out, imagine me trying to get 30 of the bloody things out in one go. I think if I had a like a hot air thing, potentially you can do that, but I think there's like issues with that as well. So you have to be super careful of anything surrounding it, because obviously you're getting it so hot that other things can come off, and there's like tiny little surface mounted capacitors and diodes and all kinds of shit all around that USB port. So I think for desoldering some things it would be like much easier to do it that way. Anyway, bon appetit with me reduced brioche rolls. Butter brioche rolls by Sainsbury's, 59 pence. Get in. And only barely out of date. And they do smell a bit yeasty, but wow. Ugly Bob, Mike's going to be off his tits on the sugar in about 5 minutes. I don't think I will. William Bodie, why is Boba Fett back in the box? He's not, he's there. That's Imatap in the box.
He's not come out of the box, he's staying in the box.
Furious Echo 9102 and 9101. My friend has finished his computer and it's giving better results than his Xbox and was cheaper. Awesome. Sorry, the cat, what was that? My brain just turned off.
I said, did you decide to keep him in the box?
Really random reviews. I just had sausage rolls in my new air fryer. Lovely. I'm really scared of air fryers. Because they've, like, been super promoted everywhere. And even the government are saying you should get an air fryer. No, and the government don't help you. So it really worries me. Tinfoil hat firmly attached, ladies and gents. Yeah, there is the Emotep is still in his protective box.
Dave Aikens asked, how is the adapter out? You asked that earlier as well.
How is the what?
90 degree. Is it a 90 degree?
90 degree
45 degree adapter?
Oh yeah, it's in the case, you can see it. There's the 45 degree adapter. The easy, thank you David, I should say, for that. And actually Bob sent me one as well. I'm not sure where I've put that one. It's here somewhere. There is a bag with it in. If I open that up, you can possibly see there is the 45 degree adapter. I was thinking actually, I wish I knew where the other adapter is, because that would actually look very cool if I had another 90 degree adapter going in, so I can have the black cable out the back and have another bit of RGB there, which would be two lines, almost like the RAM. Sadly, the RAM is a little bit too bright, so it kind of takes away some of the emphasis off that. And also, the RGB on the cooling fan is in sync with that more so than it is with the RAM. But either way, it's all good. So thank you for that. Tix Bomber, hey all, just stopping in to say hello. Have a great stream all. Thank you very much, Tix Bomber. Emotep's not back in the box, he's staying in the box. I haven't taken him out of the box.
I wouldn't know who I was talking to.
Yeah. I don't want to confuse Cav. She'd have to go and get her glasses on. Which one's Mike? Oh, there. What do you want for tea? Emotep. Patrick LaBelle's coming in a super chat there. And a question as well. I know OBS is pretty standard to live stream, but have you tried or know of any other application that makes what makes you use OBS instead? Yes, well, you've got Streamlabs OBS, which is like the kind of enhanced version. OBS is basically like the open source version, and being that it's free, cheap, etc., is kind of why I started using it. I quite like OBS. I think it works kind of pretty well. There is other things you can use. StreamYard. There's various other softwares which I've seen. vMix. I think I've got a feeling vMix might be Mac only. But yeah, there are other ones. I think OBS, just because of the amount of plugins and functionality as well. Like it works with things like the Stream Deck, and I think it's become almost like the de facto streaming software. You can use the built-in software from NVIDIA or AMD, but I just think OBS does it really well. And it's built into the Windows Store as well, so it's easy to get hold of. So, yeah. I haven't really used any others, but only for the fact that OBS is just quite easy to pick up and grab and get on with. Freedom Mouse, oh no, Skystalker says an air fryer is a small convection oven. It's 50-year-old plus tech.
So why is it only just come out now?
Yeah.
Why it's so mainstream?
Why is it gone
And
so...
isn't it plastic? You're heating up plastic. That can't be good for you.
Yeah. The plastics inside and the actual coating is what really worries... Well, not worries me, but... Yeah, halogen lamps as well aren't great for you. So if you get near a halogen lamp, like it even says, if you buy a halogen oven or hob, it says don't get near them. Like, it's dangerous, don't get near them because of the high wattage and energy. And if you are pregnant or got a pacemaker, you shouldn't be within like 5 foot of a halogen hob. So there are health concerns with them. So yeah, I just worry about it. Non-stick coatings as well, they're super bad for you if they chip off or flake off or whatever.
I don't know if they've got them.
Which
I haven't looked
they pretty much have. The whole inside is like a non-stick coating.
Ooh.
So yeah.
So it's taken off like the
Bring back cast iron. Yeah.
Maisie, you're gurgling over there.
Wonder what I was.
Poor Meaves.
Ugly Bob, I have an air fryer and it's totes amaze balls. Not used my oven in months. See, that's what everyone is saying. And it's almost like microwave ovens over again. But then microwave ovens are super dangerous as well.
I
So
won't use it. Might as well eat the wrapper. No nutrients left in your food after then.
Glenn says most of streaming softwares are OBS source code based anyway. Yeah, that is very true. Most of the other streaming softwares are basically enhanced versions of OBS, so you get more features such as the ability to take like super chats or pop up text, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, really random review says it's weird how the tech is so old, but a new craze. Choking to death. Sky says, use halogen lights to heat up air fryers in the UK. Our convection ovens use heating elements with a fan. Yeah, our convection ovens use fans and element. But the air, the Ninjas and stuff like that, I think are halogen. Strange UKers. We are strange.
We're probably stranger than most. Like me and you.
Irie Wolfman's in the house. How you doing, Irie Wolfman? Let's close this back up. There's something else which I was going to say today that I was discussing. I can't think what it was. That's really frustrating. I'm trying to look at my notes to see. I've got notes written up on the wall everywhere. I don't just write it on the wall.
Mark Berry's bad news handbrake cable on car is foobar. We didn't.
Oh,
ours
no.
didn't work, did it, for years?
Yeah.
And our drive's on a slope. But I just left it in gear.
Yeah. Our old BMW. This is the car that I actually broke. So I got it to the point that I broke it so much that it actually wouldn't go for an MOT. So I had to sell it. This is my 3 Series BMW Saloon. The rear brakes needed doing. So there's all sorts of things going wrong. And one day, I was driving Cafe, and we're driving home, and basically the dashboard just lit up like a Christmas tree. I was like, oh, that's going to be
Which
bad
one's
then.
this?
The 3 Series Saloon.
Oh, that blue one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, driving home.
But it was Christmas. We didn't have a Christmas tree. So.
Christmas time, very cold. Kath was working late at night. We only used the car for her to go to and from work. And so it's like, right, got to fix the car. So, rear brakes, took it all apart. Brake pads, brake shoes, and our driveway is on a slant like that. So when you jack the car up, it feels unnaturally weird because the car just seems like it wants to roll away. So I didn't like getting underneath it too much, even though it had like big chocks underneath the front wheels and it was jacked up, etc. Anyway, it is winter time, so getting later in the day. It's basically, I think it was like 9, 10 o'clock outside. Absolutely Baltic freezing weather, and this is where I get my direct thing with the soldering. On brake shoes there's a spring which holds them in place, and it took me basically way too long to get the spring out. So I got the spring out, trying to get it all put in back together. You got like copper slip on your hands for where you've been greasing stuff up. Absolute freezing. Every time you hit your knuckles on something it hurts, and because it's cold, it gets worse. Lighting was awful, kept on losing light, etc. So trying to get this last spring back in to get the brake pads, brake shoes back in, and I couldn't stretch it across. And I come inside the house a few times and I had to literally warm my hands up because it was so cold out there, and I was under the thing, like I got Cav's got to go to work tomorrow. Got to get his car done. So, it got to the point, I just could not stretch this spring back across. Something I'd done wrong. So I thought, right, there's only one way I can do this, and that is basically ruin the spring. So I got the spring and took out some of the spring of it, like stretched it, so it would physically fit. Only a little bit, but then after that, the brakes just basically just never worked properly again. And most of the lights still stayed on. But the car was usable, but it got to the point where if you applied the handbrake, you could pull it on, but it wouldn't come back off again. Or you'd be driving along and all of a sudden one of the wheels would just lock up, or the brake would jam on a bit, so you'd feel it lurching. It's like, I don't know what's wrong with this car.
I don't know what's wrong with it. You know what was wrong with it.
I know what's wrong with it. Me, basically, bodging it.
You didn't tell me any of this.
And,
oh my God.
Yeah, it was like under pressure to get the car going again. So, it's like...
Buy a new one.
I can't do this anymore. So it's like, the guy that I bought the car off of, it's like, I need another car. What have you got? And he's like, oh, I've got this one. It's like, yeah, that'll do. so literally...
Well, that's how we bought that one in the first place, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what we did. That's how we bought that previous one. We had our BMW 1 Series, which was previously used as a stunt car on TV. And it was basically, that was never right, because it was like twisted somewhere. Anyway. Really Random View says, sounds like you didn't line up the pad pistons. The pads were okay. It was the brake shoes. Because the handbrake had, basically the drum in the back. It was a drum and a disc in the same thing. So you had an inner drum, but an outer disc. So the discs worked, the brakes were fine, but for some reason, every now and then, the brake shoe would like be a little bit loose or something, and it would catch on the drum, and then kind of jam on. And then the only way you could get it to jam off would be take the wheel off, and there's a little hole you can line up, and you can undo a spring a little bit, take some of the tension out. But then you got to the point where you undone the tension too much, and then the handbrake just didn't work at all.
But it wasn't that one with the handbrake that didn't work. It was, I think it was my blue one.
I think it was that one as well. They all go. BMW handbrakes are awful.
One day I didn't bother putting it on at work, didn't I? And then it was like rolled across the car park. Oops.
I missed having an automatic, because the automatic was great, because you literally just put it in reverse, get to where you want it to be, and put it in park, and there's a lock that goes through the gearbox, so it basically can't go anywhere. That was great. I don't think I ever used the handbrake on my 3 Series convertible. Very, very rarely indeed. I always just leave it in park. Really Random Review says, I love my 1 Series, and yes, BMW have drums at the back, mostly pain in the ass to sort them out. I agree, especially when it's freezing cold, basically snowing, or icy, and working in the dark on your own without the right tools.
Or alternatively, you could take it to a garage.
Yeah. Really Random Review says, agree Mike, my handbrake is awful. Yeah, BMW handbrakes are shite. So Mike with his BMW, like Al Bundy with his Dodge. Pretty much. Glenn says, handbrake shoes are a great idea, just rarely executed well. I would agree. I would agree. David Aiken. Mike, what do you think of Corsair's new lighting design? I think the single connector that daisy chains everything is cool and pretty unique. Yes, I know you think it costs too much. Well, no, I think they've done what Thermaltake did with the Swafans, the Swafan EX, where you've just got one cable and everything daisy chains. Although Corsair obviously taking it to another level with that. It's a good idea. My concern is how much of an overhead it's going to have on the system. Because I know for a fact with the Thermaltake ones, the more fans you add, or the more RGB you're controlling, the higher the overhead on the system in the software. Which for modern multi-core processors isn't too bad, but it definitely does have an effect. And you can try this out for yourself. So regardless of what you've got on your system, if you've just got any RGB going, turn your RGB off altogether, or set it to static, play a game, run a benchmark, then do like the rainbow setting or configure your lights to do something else and run it again. And you'll notice that you get less FPS and your system has to work harder to get it. So there's about 5 to 10% overhead for RGB on a lot of systems, depending what software you're using. So it's going to be interesting to see how Corsair integrates it and whether or not it has a big performance hit. It might. I don't know. Skystalker says, very strange living in the UK. Driving in the UK versus North America. In North America, 80% of cars are automatic. The UK, 80% are standard. I would say it's probably more than that. There's very few automatic cars on the road in the UK. It's the rarity over here. Really Random Review says, all BMWs are a pain in the backside. They design them that way to make you take them to their shop instead of attempt repairs. Well, imagine if it was an electric car, where potentially anything you touch could blow you to high heaven. I'm really not... I'm waiting for that to be in the news, that someone's been working on their electric car in their driveway and they've managed to basically incinerate their entire street or something. James Miscellaneous is in the house. How you doing, James Miscellaneous?
Who's that? Poppy Dora. What are you doing?
Freedom House says, if they made 2 types of fans, one with sensor, one without, to reduce cost, plus every fan doesn't need a temperature sensor. I agree. Yeah, I think having a temperature sensor on a fan is pretty much like a little bit OTT, because you're not likely to go into your software and say, right, this fan must have a temperature of X degrees, because you don't really need that, do you? It's just something else to, especially if you've got like 3 of them. So what you're gonna have, your bottom fan needs to be registered, I don't know, 25 degrees. The middle one's got to be something else. I think it's just making it way too complex. It's a nice idea though. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Microsoft when they start their RGB software. Because I'm not sure if Corsair, Thermaltake, Lian Li, etc. are deliberately trying to create their ecosystems to try and edge Microsoft out of it. I don't know. Chris McGraw, how you doing, Chris? Glenn says, I set static RGB, then end task on the software. Glenn knows what it's all about, because Glenn is actually a world record holding 3D Mark aficionado. He knows the deal. Overclocker extraordinaire. Des Duckers, I always turn off RGB when playing games. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of games now are having RGB integration. Far Cry 6 has. Rainbow Siege, I think, has as well. There's various other games that have got RGB integrations into various softwares. I know MSI have got about 7 or 8 games which directly you can like have feedback through your keyboard, mouse and lighting from what is happening in the game, which actually is quite cool. But yeah, it's an overhead. Chris McGraw, sorry, your question. I bought a 5800X and have currently a Hyper 212 Evo, but it seems as it limits, so I want to get a AK620 Zero Dark cooler to replace it. Is that a bit overkill? Not really, it's probably a good idea, although you can undervolt the 5800X quite a bit to get better temps out of it. But yeah, they do tend to kind of spike quite quickly. I think it's probably a good idea. Sorry about that, James. Sorry to send you into a coma. David Aitken, Corsair controllers, listen David Underhill, Corsair controllers have ARM MCUs that actually do the control. IQ is only used to program them. There you go. Chris says, going from a 95 watt TDP to a 260 watt TDP cooler, maybe jumping the gun a bit, but still. You'll probably still find it still gets quite warm. That is one of the downsides of modern processors, that they do have a tendency to try and leverage everything, throw power limits to the wall, who cares? It's just like, chuck all the power in, generate a load of heat, as long as we get frequency. That's what it's all about. Furious Echo 9101 says, I feel it would be wrong for Microsoft to play in the RGB market. Why would you think that? I am genuinely interested. I think personally, if they manage to pull it off well, I think it's actually going to be a very good thing. Potentially it could save a lot of hassle and a lot of additional software, controllers and stuff like that. But I don't know what they're going to do. But yes, I would appreciate your feedback. All of you, actually. Do you think, like, Microsoft are probably going to balls it up? Because they don't really have a particularly good track record at the moment. They've got too many things going on. They don't really focus on anything particularly for any long period. They just sweep it under the carpet. James says, Ugly Bob told me to put RGB on my shoe rack. I've got to watch that video. I did notice that. I saw the title and I was like, is shoe rack? I don't think I even own enough shoes to necessitate an entire rack. But potentially I might.
Angel does.
Angel definitely does, yeah. Ordinary Dude says, I think we'll see cheaper brands like up here working well with Microsoft RGB software. Those that don't do so at their peril. Yeah, that could be a point. Could be a point. Although you would kind of expect that Microsoft, being Microsoft, they will buy someone like Signal RGB or Open RGB or license Open RGB or work on that. They'll take something which is open source and they'll add something to it. Potentially make it slightly closed. But then I don't understand why they're getting involved in RGB. That's my thing. Like, why would Microsoft get involved with RGB?
David Akins is off.
It doesn't make sense. Cheers, Dave. So I am confused, very confused. I don't know why. It doesn't seem that it's something that they need to do. There's no perceivable benefit of them doing it, unless they are considering producing their own PC hardware. But they don't seem to be kind of really doing much of that these days, apart from the Surface line. Microsoft keyboards, Microsoft mice, you don't really see that these days. Although, it would be quite nice to have another player on the market. So if they come out with a new Microsoft IntelliMouse RGB, I'm sure it would sell quite well, if it was at the right price. Furious Echo, it doesn't seem like Microsoft, like a very Microsoft thing to do. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Chris McGraw says, yeah, the board overclock the max boost by itself. I've done nothing more than enabling PBO. I would probably turn off PBO. Set it to auto or off. If you set it to off, you'll find the temperatures are much, much better. And the performance is essentially the same. Harry Wolfman, Windows ADHD edition in collaboration with Jay's 2 cents. Really Random Review says this is about Microsoft's RGB going into their market, because people like me love it and they will have a way to monetize it. Yeah, which makes me think more along the lines of like a Signal RGB thing. Signal RGB, to be fair, isn't bad. It's somewhere in between Open RGB and IQ. Kind of sits in that kind of in between place. It would be really nice if there was a piece of software which just worked with all RGB stuff and could read the chips and say, right, you are X chip in this keyboard, you're X chip in this mouse, this has got such and such, so we'll make all of this go rainbow puke for you now. That would be very cool. Because I personally don't like having lots of different brands together, because I think it just makes the RGB an absolute nightmare to manage. For most of you, probably don't care less. You put it in rainbow puke mode and nobody knows the difference anyway, do they? But I've got various mice up there and keyboards up here, which one of the main reasons I don't use them is because of their integration and RGB software, which is a real shame because some of them are really good. But I wait to get it all on the same ecosystem. Ordinary Dude says Signal RGB is pretty good, just doesn't work well with a lot of ASRock boards. It used to have a big problem with MSI boards. I'm not sure if that's better now or not. It used to be a thing, like a big warning saying if you use this, there's a potential that it could brick your RGB. I'm not sure if that's better now or not. James Miscellaneous says, Jay's 2 cents is extremely hard for me to watch. He's either pandering to end users or the companies he gets money from. Not genuine to me. Motive behind each video, trying to read the room. Yeah, Jay's he's a kind of unique guy. I think it's, I don't know really, it's difficult to without meeting someone and knowing someone, it's really hard to kind of define somebody. But I think he is, I think his ADHD almost defines him a little bit, where he's very much kind of got umpteen things on the go at any one time. And he'll go into like a rant about one thing, and then the next minute he's forgotten about that rant and is then saying almost the opposite or something different, and then forgetting what he's ranted about in different videos. So he gets like kind of like triggered by something, goes off on one, and then almost forgets it and then goes back and does something different and almost the opposite. I don't think it's intentional. At least I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt and say that it wasn't intentional. But I understand what you mean there. I quite enjoy some of his content. The whole like fart noise at the end of each video is a little bit like, Are you 10? I'll try not to do it in our videos. Tristan G says, I've never had any problems with Corsair AIOs. I've used on several rigs over the years. I think I've only ever had one fail. Dude says, Signal RGB is pretty good.
Sorry.
I yeah.
Listen to a voice message.
There was, I think, yeah, I had one fail, which was an early, was it an H50 or something, a 120mm. Most of them have been okay there. There's a super chat, but I can't see where that's come from.
Lucky man. Signals.
Oh, there it is. Just come up. Yeah.
With MSI board.
Ah, thank you. So, Lucky man, £2 super chat there. Signal RGB still stinks with the MSI board. Sad times. I'll be honest with you, I actually, well, I suppose I use it every day, so I would do, but MSI's RGB software, albeit very limited, does actually seem to be quite stable these days. Which I'll regret saying, because no doubt immediately something's going to crash. But I think, given the choice, if you look at the main manufacturers, so you've got ASRock, Gigabyte, MSI, and Asus. Of the four main motherboard manufacturers, which one has got the best RGB software? And fan control software? Because kind of you want to use them both. I would argue MSI do. The ASRock one is okay-ish. The fan control's good. The RGB software I think is awful. Gigabyte has got quite good RGB software, a bit more flexibility, but not quite as polished. It feels like it's kind of NVIDIA graphics driver, kind of old, maybe like 90s or early 2000s. It's got a very kind of weird feel to it. Asus, I don't know, what can I say? Armory Crate, ugh, terrible. Actually, it's weird because the original Asus RGB software, the Aurora Sync, was probably the best of them all in terms of what you could do with it. And it was very flexible. And their software, the fan software, the, what was it? QFan? No, not QFan. Can't think of what it's called now. I can see it, but I can't see it. See what you see. I can't think what it was. But yeah, their fan control software was actually pretty decent. So Armory Crate came out and basically destroyed all the good stuff that they'd done. So yeah, I don't know. Nick Barnes says, Q, I just checked my Erical PSU spec. It has 2 4-pin cables for CPU, but have bought used MSI Gaming Carbon, which has 8-pin plus 4-pin. Should I upgrade? No. 8-pin's fine, or the 2 4s would be fine. It's very, very rare that I ever use the extra 4-pin or the extra 8-pin, if there is an 8-pin. I think on this one, I don't think I even bothered on there. No, there is the spare cable on there, but I never plugged it in. I can't remember the last time I used all the connectors. Nice one, Chris. William Bodie, question, looking at the Cooler Master Liquid ML120L RGB, it costs €73 plus about 16. Is that good? To be honest, unless you've got a specific reason why you can only use a 120mm AIO, don't use a 120mm AIO. Most tower coolers these days are better than 120mm AIOs. If you can fit a 240, that's the way to go, and generally they'll be at the same price, if not cheaper, because there's such a small market for 120mm AIOs that they just don't have the frequency of cells to bring the efficiency down to make it cheaper. Andre says, honestly, I've been running a B450 mortar Wi-Fi from MSI for almost 2 years, no issues whatsoever. RGB software is a non-issue for me. I always get an external controller with a remote. Fair enough. Ordinary Dude, MSI definitely has the best software. That said, all the others completely suck. MSI is just okay. Yeah, the MSI software it's usable, it's bearable. I don't think I would use MSI motherboards on such a regular basis if it wasn't for the software. The hardware is pretty good. The prices are okay. The reliability and longevity are so-so. But I think for me, most of it is the fact that it's really easy to set my fans up. And being that I'm sat here recording videos or sat there editing videos, having fan noise is a real pain in the ass. So I love to be able to just go in there and quickly tweak fan settings in MSI Center and just get out. And that's it, it's done. I don't have to reboot, go into the BIOS, check this, check that, or install a third-party piece of software that might do my fans but won't do the RGB or will do other controls. I like MSI Center, and I like the fact that all the bits that I want to install I can, and I don't have to install all the other fluff that you don't necessarily want. So I feel they've done well software-wise. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's functional. Tristan G. I don't use motherboard software for RGB, too much trouble. It's definitely, there are kind of, it's like that risk reward scenario, isn't it? It's like, when it works, it's actually quite cool because you can get everything to synchronize. Like, I've got Rainbow set up there, so if I change this now, this will probably break OBS actually. I've got to stop stretching because it's ruining my mic. I think, actually, did this break MSI sensor last time I tried this? I think it did. I wish MSI sensor would load quicker though, that's the downside. Skystalker says, lol, Gentle Typhoon made me laugh, as it's a bit of a strange name, as most people would not associate a Typhoon with Gentle. Yeah, it's a bit daft, isn't it, really? So, Mystic Light. And let's change everything to CPU temperature. Apply. There we go. And turn it off. And turn it back on again. There we go. So that's pretty easy, isn't it? Pretty straightforward. So I've now changed all my lighting in there, my keyboard and my mouse. It's all in sync with each other. It's all kind of green. Hulk-like. I like that. Very good. Des Ducker says also ASRock Polychrome is crap. It is. I think in terms of the actual layout and theoretically what it can do, it actually looks quite good. But when you actually come to use it, it's like, oh my god, it's so clunky and ridiculously buggy. I think every single ASRock board I've ever owned, where I've tried to use their software, any changes or any configuration issues, it's generally crashed the software. And this is like, don't need that added hassle. Everyone's saying ouchie my ears. What was that? Because I dropped the mic? Sorry. Freedom House 1984, Arctic sent me the parts to repair their AIOs. MSI wanted me to send it in and pay the shipping. Yeah, that is something actually that, because Arctic are a relatively small company, they've still got the flexibility to make decisions and kind of go with it, which can be very, very useful to the end user. Whereas MSI, because they're like a massive, massive global company, they can't just turn around and say in one region, right, this is what we're going to do. We'll just send out advanced replacements for all of them. We'll get this sorted out, stop people being like left in the lurch here. In some regions, there's going to be management who are going to say, well, actually, no, we can't afford to do that, or we don't want to do that, or for whatever reason. So there, I feel that MSI, and a lot of other companies as well, let's not forget there's other companies like Sony which do exactly the same thing, but we generally don't hear about it so much because we're more in the PC market than the console market or whatever, because you get a console die, depending on what country you're in, you're basically in the same thing. In some countries, they'll send you an advanced replacement. Some countries, they will want to see it and test it. Some countries, they won't even look at it. So I don't think they're necessarily unique, but in terms of what we hear about, I suppose it is more so. Ordinary Dude says, in my experience, Arctic and Noctua have stellar CS. Noctua, I would think, have to. Because Noctua, you are paying an extreme premium for their fans. Like, extreme premium for what you get. I think if they didn't, then I don't think they'd be quite where they are. I still feel, actually, that Noctua are still quite overrated. And I've got the option, I've got quite a few Noctua coolers and fans up there, but I don't use them. I don't know. There's something about Noctua as a company which almost feels, I'm not sure what even the right word is for it, but it just feels, I don't like using their products, I don't think. They have something, I don't know. It's almost like Titanic when it came out. It's like super popular and everyone went out and watched Titanic. I was like, I don't want to watch it. It's too hyped up, I don't want to watch it. I know kind of what the deal is, so I don't want to watch it. Is that stupid? Probably
we
is.
do that the same as Just Eat, don't we? Go for the worst reviewed movies,
Yeah.
and then you're not disappointed.
Chris McGraw says Deep Cool seems to expand a lot lately, both in sales and product line. Yeah, they've done a lot. They've come a long way, actually. Deep Cool used to be a very, very budget brand, but they've now they've got a higher standard of products, but they've managed to keep the prices relatively in check, which is always good. Free Mouse says, yeah, I had an Arctic fan go out and they just asked my address and sent me a new one. So yeah, good customer service. I do like Arctic as a brand in general.
They sent us a cute little Christmas tree gift one year, didn't they?
They do send some cool gifts. Yeah, they sent us out a Christmas tree.
Like a little
wooden box with a Christmas tree thing in it.
It was a seed in it, wasn't it? We
Yeah.
had to grow it ourselves.
Yeah, like they're very ecologically, like they're thinking about the environment. Which
In a good way.
Yeah, they're not being too anal about it, but they are making the right gestures. Although I would say that sending out coolers without instructions where you have to scan the QR code is a ridiculous thing to do. Because not everybody has more than one device. And potentially reading a PDF on a iPhone mini is probably not the most confidence inspiring if you are trying to build a PC. And in fact, I hate it. I hate having to I've got an Arctic Freezer 360 out there, which I am seriously considering putting into my daily driver. But the fact that I know that I'm going to have to go and scan the QR code so I know I've got the right fittings for my motherboard, I just can't be bothered. Which is such a first world stupid thing to say. But I just can't be arsed with it. I don't want to scan a QR code just to get the instructions, or have to go onto Google, then say this, and which revision cooler is it? It was revision 1.3B, so that's going to have this set of things. It's like, it's cool that they got that all there, but just put the instructions in the box. It's not the end of the world. But then, I suppose my case is slightly unique that I change stuff on a relatively regular basis, whereas most people fit it once and that's it, done. James Mussolini says, I started watching this channel because of Arctic product reviews, among others. Thank you. Yeah, I was very much a champion of Arctic. I used to use Arctic products from when they first entered the market back in, I think it was...
Fox, isn't it?
What the hell is that noise?
It's a fox.
It sounded like a baby crying. What was I going to say? Yes. I was a very big champion of their stuff from the early 2000s when they first started doing stuff. Their range was a lot smaller. They actually did some very cool cases. There was 2 cases they did, which were the kind of almost like a BTX form factor, but for ATX cases. Very, very cool stuff. And when they started coming out with the GPU coolers, the Acero or Celero, those were very cool as well. And at the time when the market, lots of very noisy graphics cards, like the Radeon 9800 SEs and Pros and stuff, they were crying out for coolers, and they did a really good job. And the original like Freezer 64, when the AMD 64 processors first came out, excellent coolers. But I think nowadays they've gotten a little bit expensive for what they offer anyway. The last one that we had here, which I used on a regular basis, was the Freezer A35, which actually I still liked a lot and was a great CPU cooler, but they're now sort of 35, 40 quid. And I think for that sort of money, oh God, there's other viable options on the market. When they were like 20, 25 quid for the Freezer 34 and Freezer 35, it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, decent pricing. It's a quality product, and they're a company going in the right direction. But the prices have just got really expensive, and their fans, the Arctic fans, are hard to beat. The case fans, the was it the P20 ARGB PST, whatever they are, 0 RGB or 0 dB. Those are really good. But they've done something really stupid with the wiring. So like one wire comes out one side of the fan, the other wire comes out the other side of the fan, which if you have fans closely linked together, kind of limits your options a little bit. Not the end of the world, but it's just a bit weird. But they are about £10 each, £11 each at the moment, which actually, for the performance they give you, is brilliant, and they look really nice. But the 140mm versions of it are like ridiculous money, which is a real shame because they would be very good. But the 120s are excellent. So it'd be interesting to see what they do, what they come up with. Skystalker, what was the Dustbuster NVIDIA product? The 8800 GT with the blur fan. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was so hot and so loud. Colin Hilton, how you doing, Colin? What's he not liking?
Not Joe's colour.
Not sure fans look terrible. The whole brown and beige thing. I know it's like their thing, their skit to make them different.
I suppose in the olden days they would have fitted in nice.
They do the black versions now, which are kind of make sense. But then you have to pay a massive premium for them. They are good fans though, and the support and the warranty and all that you can't really argue with. But I still do feel there's a level of kind of pretentiousness about Noctua fans. I think they're almost like saying we can do stupid coloured fans because we're so good, and that to me almost offends me. I know that sounds stupid, but it is like, I don't like it when companies get to a point where they think they've got such a captive market and audience that they feel they can do whatever they want on a whim. Because obviously to make a brown and beige fan, you would imagine, I don't know because I don't make these things, but you would imagine that it costs money to make multiple colours of things. So just basically having everything black, you would think is simpler and cheaper, perhaps. I don't know. It does seem a bit bizarre. So it's almost like they've held on to the brown and beige thing purely as a statement, rather than being something which is kind of makes sense to the end user. And there must be a lot of people that would love to put Noctua fans in their PCs, but they won't pay the premium for a blacked out fan, and they don't want beige and brown. I'm probably one of those people. And why not do RGB? Come on, Noctua. Like, if you make the best fans in the market, surely you should be able to do something decent with RGB as well. There's a challenge. Yeah, the two-tone brown thing, I think, is everyone is kind of in the same thing. That it's just a weird thing. Yeah, Chris McGraw's got a good point there. Yeah, but so far the NHD15 gets crushed in every review of Deepcool AK620 Dark since its launch. The NHD15, when it came out, was like the cooler, but I think it also, again, it became the de facto high-end cooler because, again, that branding. And it's been a long time since the NHD15 has been like at the top of the charts in any review for a long time. And even as much, probably 3-4 years ago, when I compared it against various things, it was like, yeah, it's good and it's pretty quiet, but it's an absolute pig to install, leaves you no room, won't fit in a majority of cases, and blocks RAM, and has mediocre results. I've actually got it up on my shelf and I've been thinking, what the hell am I going to do with it? I honestly do not know what I'm going to do with it. Ordinary Dude says the Noctua coolers I've used are mostly SFX or small form factor specific and work very well. Maybe not the absolute best, but yeah, they're quiet, which in a small form factor case is something which is definitely a consideration, especially if it's like a media center. And they do have a decent lifespan as well. I don't think I've ever known a Noctua fan go bad. As long as I've known them, used them, and known people with them. Let me know in the comments, has anyone had a Noctua fan go bad? Or break? I imagine it's going to be very rare. I think someone said a little bit earlier. No, it's Arctic, wasn't it, earlier? Kieran's with us. How you doing, Kieran? Ordinary Dude says, I still use almost exclusively Arctic fans. They work as well as a lot of more expensive fans. Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think, well, I was looking today to buy fans. Bizarrely, there's a weird offer on at InWin. And you can actually pick up an InWin Alice case for like €5.
But somebody said it was €45 to post.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
So depending where you live, if you're in the EU, there's a chance that you're going to get it exceptionally cheap. But I tried it and I ordered 6 of their Jupiter fans, I think it was. They were €6 each, which is an amazing value for money for 140mm ARGB fans. But they wanted something like €50 for postage. So it's like immediately, like, click, 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 off. Not going to be doing that. So, yes, there we go. Schmeezy. Tristan G says, I've only had a Thermaltake case fan go bad on me. I haven't had a Thermaltake fan go bad on me yet. Which I hope they don't. Because they're quite expensive. William Bodie says, no, and still have my first Noctua fan, over 7 years old, and still works like the first day. So you can't argue with that, can you? Kieran says the InWin BR36 is my favourite ever cooler. Yeah, that is a bizarre cooler. If you've not seen the InWin BR36, you should check it out. It's a very unusual design. It's basically combining a traditional tower cooler with a water cooler. But instead of having a tower cooler made of metal, it's kind of plastic. So you've got this big fan on top of the CPU pump head, which keeps all the VRMs and stuff cool. It's a very cool design. But for some people, it might be a little bit too over the top. Furious Echo's asking, ever thought of looking at Enermax cases? Yes, but in the UK, they are like rocking horse poo. You very rarely see them. Colin Hilton says Lian Li Unifan SL V2 ARGB are in my Lian Li cases. Those do look good. I'm not sure if I was put off of those by Jay's 2 cents, because he was raving about them. And I think that might have put me off them. They do look good, but they do, well, like anything premium, they have a premium price tag.
That's not your scratching post, is it?
David Underhill says, I had an Up Here fan go bad. It is currently doing 5 to 10 years in a federal prison. James Miscellaneous says, those one fans with the crazy firework effect were the coolest. Surprised they aren't sold in another form all over the place. Very cool. I've rewatched that just to recall a name a few times. I've recalled the name a few times. Yeah, they were bizarre, weren't they? What were they called?
Kieran will know.
Kieran will know. Rick H says, I like Noctua fans, I don't care about the colour. There's always going to be that thing, I think, with the PC marketplace and PC owners and enthusiasts. You're going to get some people who are purely in the performance category, where they don't care what it looks like as long as it performs well. Then there's going to be some that are in the more the aesthetics category, so they don't really care how fast it is as long as it looks pretty. And then there's a massive chunk in the middle who kind of like, well, they like it to look pretty, but they're not too concerned about performance, and they're kind of conscious of price as well at the same time. So there's something for everybody, definitely. And I think that's why companies like Noctua and Up Here and all those other things in between, and Arctic and that's why they exist, because there are the segments in the market which they cater to. Noctua generally are going to be catering towards industry and enthusiasts that are more looking at the either silence or performance range. Then in the middle range you've got the kind of Arctics, thermal takes and all that kind of stuff. Cuda Master I suppose you could throw in there as well, Antec and a few, well no, Antec I won't put in there. In the lower end you've got like the random Chinese brands, your John's Bows, your Game Maxes, Antec, Asia Horse, all that kind of stuff, who are kind of just, yeah, cheap and cheerful. Does it move air? Does it light up? Happy days, job done. Furious Echo says they sell Enermax cases on Amazon in the UK. I will investigate. Irie Wolfman says I have the thermal take fans from my Xer V7. They still work fine. Still looking at getting the CTE 750 when more stock arrives. I think I've said enough about the CTE 750. The review should be coming out very shortly, so you can see what my thoughts are, and I'll do a full teardown of it. Okay, so if you are interested in money, you want to see what you can do with it, then that review will be out very shortly. It's very cool. It's very interesting, and they've done, honestly, a fantastic job on it in terms of engineering, how it all goes together, the layout, the parts, the machining. It's a proper case. It really is. It's very take in and outable. Everything comes apart. It's really good. But I think for me, the rotation and the size of it was definitely a consideration. It was almost impossible to film. I had to make so many. I added another desk on the end just so I can get the camera far enough away so you can actually see it all in the shot. And half of it I had to shoot just the case itself without me in it. So that'll be a surprise for some of you.
That'd be good for all of
you.
you.
You'll appreciate that.
Kieran says it's Zezio.
Ah, yeah, that's the one. Zezio. Thank you. Yeah, Zezio ZS120. Those were mad. Wolfman says CTE 750 or Sharkoon Rev 300. I don't know. The Sharkoon, I'm not too sure. I think I had the Sharkoon Rev 220. That was quite a big case. That was actually, I quite like that.
Well, they're up there for ages.
Yeah, I had to have it there because it was inverted, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So the glass was on this side rather than that side.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that was mad. Right, it's come up to 11 o'clock, so we'll give you the 5-minute warning now because I do have work to go to, so I'm making sure. I think, you know what, that's cured my back.
It cured my shoulder. Once you aimed it at the right place and could take your eyes off.
Yeah, actually, let me see if I
Ali Vice for 5 minutes and see where you're aiming it at me.
Look at that, no pain. Happy days.
Blast it.
Well, a very little bit of pain. Small bit. Because earlier on, when I went, before I started the stream, I'll be honest with you, I went into the stream and so I walked to the shops and I was like, that was a struggle and that hurt. I was like, was I very quiet? I thought I was very quiet.
You were quite quiet and you kept moaning.
I was quiet and I was moaning
So
and I was like,
wife, he does moan.
I was like, very rigid and it was hurting a lot. But it's cool.
Oh. Give him the blast.
So this is what it is. This is the, is it plugged in?
It was.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
So this is the Thrife I Terra Care. I call it a Terra one, but it's basically it's got like it's blue light therapy and some other stuff, crystals and stuff, and terahertz technology, which is probably killing the mic thing. But you just do that where it hurts, and it's got a healing effect. If you see it. Anyway, you get the general idea. Sounds like a bloody hairdryer.
I did use it as a hairdryer this week.
You can use it as a hairdryer, apparently. Oh, ouch. So yeah. Oh, that's a little bit.
But
I've got more,
but
maybe
you only did it for about 10 minutes?
Yeah, I'll have to have another go later. That seems rather sus, yeah. Use it on the motherboard. I'll tell you what, if it did, that would be great.
They've got a Facebook group of testimonials on it.
I hope it cures hangovers, says Ugly Bob. Ordinary Dude says, my Linux machine is the GameMax Spark. Nice case. I did like the GameMax Spark. In fact, I still need to do a build in the Johnsbow D41, which is basically the same chassis as the Spark. A few differences, but very similar.
The Ordinary Dude, but will it get rid of grey hair? On that testimonial group, there
somebody said it did, yeah, because
whose hair does look darker.
Supposedly, the terahertz frequency does something, and it brings the blood to the surface, or does something to the blood. It excites your blood vessels, so they kind of congregate, which is generally a good thing, I think, because it brings white and red cells to areas that need repairing.
Just look it up on YouTube.
You can look it up anyway. Yeah. So in theory, it potentially could. I don't know.
But then I've read
I'm not allowed to say it does.
That make your hair.
It cures hangovers. We need the link. It gets rid of headaches, definitely, because I had a bad shoulders and neck ache and headache, like tension, and used it for about 10-15 minutes, and yeah, it was fine. It's good gear.
But I've read lots of things make your hair colour come back, and none of them have worked so far.
Yeah, I'll be glad just to have hair back, let alone grey or whatever colour. David Underhill says, pseudoscience Mike. I don't like the word science. I don't believe in science. Science believes in me. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. There's been no more questions. So, yeah, I'm going to eat the rest of my brioche rolls. Enjoying those. Thank you all so much for joining us on this stream. Much appreciated. I'm actually surprised I managed to get through it. I thought my back was going to die, and I thought I was going to have to cry off after about an hour and say sorry.
Why aren't you mooning anymore?
I didn't moan about it much, actually. Last time I did it, I was knackered.
You started off mooning, but
yeah, it
did fade out.
Will Hatton says, trust the science. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we know where that gets us. Oh yeah, forgot to put in the crystals. Damn. The heat will dilate the blood vessels. Not sure about the blue light does anything except show where you're pointing. Does it look blue on camera? It's actually like purple, like UV. I think.
It's blue.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for the super chats. Look out for the videos on Monday. The build video on Monday coming out, or a build guide. So I think what else we've got coming up. There's so much stuff that I've done ages ago now, and I'm struggling to actually get up to date with what is going on. But there's going to be some cool videos, so do stay subscribed for those. If you've got any comments or questions or any suggestions for videos, either drop into the Discord and let us know. There is a specific room there for video suggestions. Or if you're just watching any of the videos or even on the stream, just comment after in the comment section. Mike, how about doing a video on XYZ? And yeah, if I haven't done it or I've done it before and it needs updating, then I will try and do that for you. Awesome stuff. So, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video, where my back is now mobile. Happy days. I'm surprised. I thought I was going to have to not go to work tomorrow, which is a bit crap, really. I was hoping to try and get a day off, but then I'd rather not be in pain than go to work. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next one. Good night, guys and girls.